All right, good evening. Welcome to the September 12th, 2011 meeting of the Lake Forest Historic Preservation Commission. Commission's here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, neighbors, and architects, to continue the tradition that was established nearly 40 years ago in this community. That tradition is a review process that allows community members to work together to preserve the qualities and unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and democratic meetings. To achieve that goal, meeting procedures have been adopted by the Commission. A copy of the procedures is available at the back of the room on each agenda. As always, it's the intent of the Commission to help manage the development and growth of the City of Lake Forest with a keen sense of preserving the historic structures and open space in the city for all its present and future residents. Our goal is to move each petition before us tonight through the review process as quickly as possible, while balancing the interests of the petitioners, neighboring property owners, and the larger community. So we'll start this evening with introduction of the commissioners. Thank you.
Guy Bird.
Kurt Peretz.
Fred Moyer.
Jim Preschlag.
And I think that we've got a set of meeting minutes from our August 10th meeting that was submitted to everybody. Does anyone have any comments, corrections, or additions to those meeting minutes? And has everybody had an opportunity to look those over? And it looks like everybody's, although, checking them out, huh? Yeah, what do you got there?
Well, let's see, on page 12, middle of the page, just a slight editing of, on page 12, slight editing of a comment attributed to me. It says, Commissioner Moyer commented that retaining the, and what should be stated next is existing awnings with striping is an improvement over the proposed design. And delete, but would not be the best solution.
Okay, anybody else? I'll ask for a motion to approve those minutes. All right, motion's been made by Commissioner Swenson, seconded by Commissioner Berg. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So the meeting minutes are approved, and we have one schedule change for this evening, the petition, which will be our third petition on the agenda, petition item number 5, for 333 East Woodland Road has been pulled from the agenda for this evening. That's a landscaping approval and a fence and gate. So that will not be heard this evening if anyone's here for that. I want to make sure you don't hang around all afternoon and then not hear that one. So that we'll find out what happens to that, but that won't be heard this evening. And we're going to start with the request for a certificate of appropriateness approving storefront alterations, including awning and signage for a new design studio and retail business for Megan Winters at 675 North Forest Avenue. I'll just check and see if anyone has any ex parte conflicts. Most of the commissioners have heard this before, and I think that the commissioners that have not heard this have reviewed the proceedings from the prior meetings. Any ex parte conflicts? No. All right, there we go.
Good evening. I'm Megan Winters. For those of you who were here last month, I'm back. I just wanted to give a brief review for the commissioners who were not here. Last month, we went through the approval process and were able to, for my new design studio and shop, which will house high-end residential interior design accessories and furniture from Europe as well as the US, we were able to approve the existing store signage mechanism of the name of the business on the center awning over the front doors. We were also able to get some approval on replacing the current doors that had some wood rot with some fully lighted doors that were consistent with the historic architecture. We also had success in getting the planter boxes approved. replacing the 2 concrete white planters with some more English-style square Versailles planters that would house boxwood under the windows as well as on either side of the door. In keeping with our prior presentation on design scheme for the awning color, we were also able to receive approval on repainting the window trim so that it was white and consistent with the white that was already there and other buildings around Market Square. We're here today because my awning approval was not approved. My awning proposal was not approved. However, we've worked with our subcommittee, and we're actually pretty excited to be here tonight to review with you and hopefully receive approval on our new awning presentation. I think we came up with I hope we came up with a very positive compromise solution that will be in keeping with my image and most importantly in keeping with the historic architecture of the beautiful Howard Van Doren Shaw building in which we are so privileged to be operating. So today with me I have my business partner Annette Carroll, who's the brains of the business, and our architect Frank Klepich, who is an architect and done many spectacular buildings in and around the Chicago area as well as nationally. I consulted with Frank and the subcommittee and would like to have Frank propose this evening and present our alternative compromise awning proposal.
Great.
Good evening. My name is, as Megan introduced me, I'm Frank Klepich. I'm a local architect. I've practiced architecture in Lake Bluff and Lake Forest since 1993. And I've always admired, and I live in Lake Bluff as well, and I've always admired Howard Van Doren Shaw at Market Square. It's a beautiful piece of architecture. Shaw is truly one of my favorites, and he really was an architect's architect. He followed very closely the classical principles of design in architecture and in basic architectural design as well. So when Megan came to me and asked me to assist her in looking at the design for the awning, I saw it as 2 problems, or I saw the problem in 2 different ways. One is the architecture of the awnings themselves, the size, the form, the projection off the building, and then the other one is color. So, you know, in a forum like this, you want to try to make these conversations as objective as possible, and color is always a very subjective issue. But I think on the first issue of architecture, Annette, if you could pull up the first drawing. What we've done is we've designed the awnings to match the existing awnings on the jewelry shop side in width, height, projection, and valence. Everything is exactly the same. So we're trying to follow the form of the existing awnings, and I think Vinci had designed this back in '84 or something like that. So we're trying to follow that and be compatible with the form of the architecture. But I guess at the last meeting, the big issue became color. So, you know, when you talk about color, if I like a certain color, you may not like the color. So how do we make this an objective conversation? And I think the first thing goes back to some basic design principles that I learned in school, you know, years and years ago, and that is if you have an existing piece of architecture and you can't match it exactly, because that's kind of what we're dealing with the awning colors, it's always going to look like you tried, but it was unsuccessful. So we have 3 awnings on the north side of the building that they've been under the weather and the elements since 1984. The white has grayed out, the green is basically faded out, they're ripped, and they're really tattered and in very bad shape. So if I can show you this, we've tried to find a white and green awning through different suppliers. And this is what we found. We found one with a bigger stripe and one with a smaller stripe as well. And you can see how bright white this white is and how bright the green is. So now that we've done a Photoshop drawing of what it would look like if we put green and white awnings to match the existing ones that were put up in 1984. So in basic design, this is what my professors, taught me at U of I in, probably the second class in design, is that if you try to match it and it doesn't match, the basic design fails. And I think if Howard Van Doren Shaw were here and he saw this, I think he'd have some issues with it. So what you do, instead of trying to match it exactly in design, is you try to find something that's compatible with the rest of the building and the rest of the design. So Megan really looked at this very closely, and so did I, and we thought that the slate gray of the roof would be something that would be compatible with the entire building. There's a lot of color going on there. There's a turquoise green, there are greens, whites, blues. There's so many things going on there. So we elected to go with the compatible sort of slate gray color for an awning, and that's the next slide. You see how this just to the eye becomes very smooth and soothing, and it's not bright white green out there at you. So this is what we thought our solution would be. And with that said, I don't know if there's, if I can say more than that as far as what our thoughts are on this. You know what, there's another slide too that shows the streetscape, and this is something the committee suggested we do, is we show a view of the awnings from the side, because this is where most perceivers will see the building and the awning. They will come along the edge, and you won't see the whole building. You won't see the stripes and the gray awnings, at the same time for most of the people walking down the street. So that's our thought on. If you'd like to see the colors, I'll show this to you. Can I get it back there?
Yeah, there's a door.
So this is the gray. And this is what we're proposing as the gray. Also, in using the gray canvas, we would also propose another color for the trim, and that's attached to the gray canvas. It's a charcoal gray color instead of the white, which was approved last time.
Could you just repeat that comment for us real quick?
There's a chip of a paint color attached to the gray canvas, and that's what we would propose for the windows and the door, instead of the white.
Oh, I see.
You can see it in the Photoshop drawing.
Okay. All right, do we have a staff report, Megan?
Thank you, Chairman Peretz. This is an item that was continued from last meeting, which was about a month ago. The commission had pretty extensive discussion on this item and really struggled with what the correct direction would be for this particular petition. As a result, the commission appointed a subcommittee to work with the petitioner and meet with them on site and really discuss some of the key issues pertaining to this project. The subcommittee met with the petitioner twice on site, had productive discussions, and really the ultimate goal was to find a solution in respect to the color and the style of awnings that was really compatible to the architecture of the building, as was stated by the petitioner. In the packets that the commission received, the petitioner provided two alternatives, two options for consideration by the commission. The preferred option is the slate gray awnings that was presented to the commission this evening. They also provided an option that showed a green awning with green trim. I think from the staff's perspective, both options could be appropriate. The recommendation in the staff report identifies the green option for approval primarily due to the fact that it more closely aligns with the way the ordinance reads, that encourages or states that green awnings should be used throughout the central business district. The ordinance does, however, give the commission the authority to review alternatives to green awnings and to decide if that shift in the color is appropriate for a specific site, for a specific building, and uniquely is appropriate for that site. So with that, I welcome comments from the subcommittee that Chairman Peretz, Commissioner Berg, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sure, maybe Guy would, well, actually, before we get to that, in light of the recommendation, is there also a green awning we should be looking at?
Okay, we do have a green awning option, but we very strongly request that you consider the charcoal gray awning. It's my dramatic first preference. I honestly believe it goes with the building better than yet another green color on the building. So I would, of course, defer to whatever your direction is and can have Frank present the green, but I would really appreciate it if you would consider the gray as a standalone in our #1 preference.
Okay, well, in light of the recommendation, I think we better at least see it. So why don't we have Frank tell us about it, and we'll consider your comments. Thank you.
I'll give you this, and it also has a trim color as
Okay.
well. It looks very close to the gray, but Annette, maybe you want to show the green option. That's, you know, I guess with Photoshop, that's about the closest we could get, but this is,
Yeah, there you go.
our one concern about the green, and it becomes more vibrant in the daylight. It's hard to see under incandescent lighting. But there are so many different types of green there. You have the green of the jewelry shop, and then you have that turquoise color on the second floor. And this green is probably the most understated green that we could find that wouldn't fight with the rest of the building. But we believe that the gray, because of the roof color, is probably the nicest way to integrate a different color awning into the building without popping out at you and fighting with the other colors.
So the subcommittee met a couple times. I think one time it was just Guy, one time it was Guy and myself. And you know, it's definitely a tricky little problem here because we all really like the building as it sits, and we also all want the solution to respect Market Square. At the same time, we all also acknowledge that the storefronts want to have their own identity and that they all want to call attention to their, you know, the sales of their goods. And we want to also encourage that as well, because we all like having a vibrant downtown shopping district. So we bantered this about quite a bit. And I think mostly I don't know that we didn't design a solution. We just, you know, made sure that everybody understood the problem. We encouraged them to look at the solution as a streetscape in terms of the whole block, because there's more than just this building going on. There's the rest of Market Square, and there's Southgate next to it. And you know, I don't know that I would have any other comments on the subcommittee process unless you do, Guy.
Well, I think when we were, can you hear me all right? Is this on? I think so. When we were meeting, I think we, and you didn't do that tonight, but maybe you did it last time. You mentioned that, and you have a photograph in your petition tonight, that the building originally did not have any awnings on it. It was not actually a series of storefronts, it was a recreation center, so the building really didn't get that type of elevational treatment that you see inside the square. And I believe that one of the things that we gave general direction on was to try to create the feeling of compatibility. Kurt, I think, is that probably a good way to sum up. We didn't try to design it for the petitioner because that's not what we do here. But in general, I think we had pretty amiable meetings.
So is the color of the flower boxes and the awning, they're going to be the same irrespective? Is that correct?
If I remember correctly, the flower boxes come with the patina already applied, and they're their own color.
That's correct.
And I think it's kind of a gunmetal to look like aged lead.
Hmm.
and it seemed to be pretty successful at that.
Hmm.
So I don't know that that color relationship was that important.
But, you know, the discussion last time was to have the doors white. It looks like the request is to have the trim of the doors and the windows be the color of the awning, whether it's gray or green. Yeah. So that would be a subtle
Mhm.
change. So, we did a staff report. But it's an opportunity for commissioners to ask questions of either the staff or the presenter. I know we've got some folks who have seen this, you know, they've seen the meetings, but, so I'm giving a little bit of breathing room between the questions for people to digest this. Any questions?
I mean, I have a question for
Yeah.
staff. The desired green from the staff standpoint, how does that match up to the green that's on the existing awnings right now? Has there been any comparison done with that?
We haven't done a color analysis. We're looking at the samples for the first time tonight. I think the staff recommendation is really based on the fact that the ordinance calls out green as an acceptable awning color, but it also allows the Preservation Commission the ability and flexibility to approve other colors as well.
I have a question for staff. Since the ordinance states that the awnings should all be green around Market Square, what do other businesses do when their awning tears? Do they have a similar difficulty in finding a green that matches their adjacent stores? Has this been a problem in the past, about finding greens that sort of fit in with our Market Square look?
I think there's a pretty standard green that's used throughout the Central Business District area. I don't know of any particular issues with that.
But there's certainly a range of, if you walk Market Square, and I've done this many times since this has come up, there's a range of solutions with respect to the awnings. They're not all exactly the same. On this building, they are all exactly the same. They all went on at the same time, it looks like, and they all are made out of the same material. But across the street, which is not in Market Square, we've got green and white striped awnings, and
I'm just wondering what the precedent is.
yeah,
of
and they're all
trying to match,
subtly
you know,
different, yeah.
a range of a nice green.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
Jane McLaughlin, the newest awning that went in, is actually kind of the color we proposed last time, which is really a quite different green, and it's kind of a blue green. Don't have the sample here yet. So, and I guess the difference too in Market Square, the buildings are kind of meant to be different and they're never kind of exactly the same.
Yeah, I have a question following up on the ordinance, because city ordinances, especially when we're at the BRB or HBC, are really designed to avoid subjectivity. And that's how we maintain our objectivity. And here, we're trying to be objective by saying it's green or green striped. And I think maybe we need to really revisit that in a way to define that better. You know, I mean, we all know it's green, but there's many shades of green. It's not our preference, you know, we're not saying we like this better, we're just following ordinance, which is trying to avoid, you know, subjectivity. So, you know, we might want to just, I guess I'm saying, you know, to avoid subjectivity in the future about shades of green, maybe we need to define that better.
I think that's a good point. I would also like to clarify that the part of the ordinance that we're referring to is actually a set of guidelines that was put together to attempt to do just what Commissioner Athenson was saying, was to bring some continuity to the downtown area and to allow businesses to change their awnings within a certain degree so that staff can approve certain modifications, and then if there are differences, that we have the opportunity to bring those forward to the commission for approval. But they are guidelines, suggested colors for the Central Business District.
Any other questions or comments for the staff or the presenter?
I have a question for Megan. Megan, did you at all talk with Michael at the jewelry shop to just get his feedback on the proposed awning, or just how he felt, or in general? Have you reached out to him and had any conversations with the folks next door to you?
You know, I did have a chance to chat with him, and he was supportive of our gray, thought it was sort of in keeping with what he saw my store becoming, but he wants to keep his green and white, so.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right, if I don't see any other questions, it's an opportunity for the public, for any public testimony. Do we have any public testimony? I see none of that, so we can deliberate, folks. So, you know, there's definitely two schools of thought on this one. We heard Fred's, I think, unchanging opinion last time. Fred really likes the solution the way it is and thinks that that's the best solution, and you can tell us about that in a minute. I think the counterpoint to that is, you know, whether we really consider the awnings and the color of the storefront to be, you know, part of the architecture that is sacrosanct or not. And my view on it is that it's window dressing to the building, and that we don't really necessarily have the luxury of having one large tenant for this building, so it's okay for it to look a little different for the different tenants. I don't think that the building is violated by that. And so I can see a compatible solution that's different than what's out there. In my mind, that's acceptable route. Whether it's green or the gray, you know, we could talk about that, but it's kind of like the first question is it okay or not? I'm sure Fred will have a opinion for you, a counterpoint to that, and I respect that for sure. So those are the two kind of schools of thought on that.
I'm more concerned about the trim. I think that
The
that
trim?
really does stand out. In Market Square, I think all the trim in Market Square, every inch of it is green and white, or a combination of both. And I think that to do gray, I think, you know, in my mind, that is a little jarring.
You know, I personally really think it's really important that we follow the ordinance on this, just to maintain some consistency. You know, I think we saw this a couple months ago when we had Caribou Coffee up here.
Mhm.
We were talking about different color awnings, and personally, I don't think that color was as successful as we had anticipated. People are asking me about it. What is that? You know, it sticks out. It isn't like forest green, you know, so, and I really appreciate Mrs. Hodges' comments last time about if we keep picking away at this little by little, we're gonna have a hodgepodge that's gonna change the character of Market Square. I really appreciate, you know, trying to differentiate your business. I totally understand. My mother has a business in downtown Lake Forest too, so I understand what you're saying. But I think it's important to understand you're gonna differentiate your business by your planters, and the style of awning is different. It's really updated. The doors, the signage, you know, you have different types of doors. I think you're really gonna be able to differentiate your building. And personally, I think it looks better without the awnings. I like the original look of the building, but, you know, because it's just such a solid, like Fred said last time, just a solid face of the building, it's much different from what we see in the square. And I think we need to be more unified with that front facade. And the best way to do it is to be objective and follow the ordinance. So I would be more in approval of, or in favor of agreeing that maybe we can decide what is the Lake Forest green and come to a conclusion with that.
Well, after considerable deliberation, I've become acceptable to the gray, and I feel that would probably would be compatible enough. And as far as the substitution to the green, of course, I would be all right with that if it takes something like that to get this thing through.
What about the trim, Guy? What's your sense about whether the trim is white or gray or purple?
Well, I believe last time we already approved the white.
We did.
Okay. And I don't really think I have a real problem with the substitution of the color to match the canopy.
Can I just add a clarification?
Sure.
And I want to emphasize what Ms. O'Neill already mentioned, that the code language for signage is very specific. It talks about a certain size, a certain height. Several years ago, to provide further guidance, the signage guidelines, which are not hard and fast, were incorporated into the code simply as that, guidelines. And in the guidelines is where there's a preference stated for green. It recognizes that green is a predominant color, but I just want to distinguish between what is in the code. The sign can be 15 inches and, but that language about green is not in the code. It certainly is in the guideline. It certainly should be considered very carefully. It goes to the character, but I just wanted to make sure that the commission understood that distinction.
And Kathy, you're bringing up that distinction because it sounds like there's more leeway in the language as a guideline versus being specifically in the code in terms of the color.
Yes, I think that what I heard Commissioner Atkinson say was that she wanted to be sure that the commission was being consistent with the ordinance by approving, and I'm not suggesting whether you should approve the gray or shouldn't, but by approving the gray, I just want to be clear that you would not be violating the ordinance. You would be carefully considering the guidelines and then making a judgment on the overall proposal.
Right. And that's in keeping with the ordinance and our deliberations and what we can decide.
It is. The guidelines are intended to help the commission and help the petitioners understand what elements are really key to the character of our core area.
Thank you. I still think I like the green.
Which green?
Whatever green is Lake Forest green. To be determined later.
Yeah. Well, you know, whether we're subjective or not is, you know, an interesting conversation. I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like we split a lot of gray hairs here, you know, between black and white all the time. And this is one of them, I think. So we just have to, you know, decide what we think we want to see and what we want to approve, and whether it's, you know, the ordinance certainly supports this process and supported this process through the Caribou Coffee awning submittal. I agree with you. Caribou Coffee, I look at that and I'm a little less satisfied than I expected to be with that, frankly. I don't know if I would be any more satisfied if it were green. And it's also not lit yet, and there's no activity there, and I think that by the time the sign is up and it's occupied, it'll look fine. And, so, you know, it is a little bit of a different situation, I think, and, you know, that's why we've been treating this with kid gloves, because we know we could possibly be opening up a can of worms. We don't necessarily want to be opening up a can of worms, but I do think we want this to look nice on this building. I think we need to think about it in terms of how the whole streetscape reads. So.
I think we should just think about what will happen next month when someone else comes and wants a gray awning in Market Square. Then what do we do? I mean, that would put me in an awkward position to look them in the eye and say, well, last month she could have it, but this month you can't. You know, that's where I stand.
Fred, can you share?
I like the gray though, you know, so, but I don't know that, what do we do next month?
Shall I begin?
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I have been a problem on this petition, and I don't like to be a problem for anybody. But I do feel responsibility to state my views, and objectively and based on my background and whatever that is. Appreciate the reference to the University of Illinois. I not only went to school there 5 years, but later after grad school went back and was a professor in design for 16 years. Apparently you weren't a student of mine. Commenting, by the way, on what you did say, I'm on that point about the difficulty of matching with new awnings, the ones next to it. There's another option, that is replace all the awnings, and they will all be the same. And I thought the green and white that you passed around was very attractive, the wide stripe one. Maintains the character of what's there in the Market Square. I see two issues here. One is the context of the Shaw Building itself and its features, and the second is the Market Square theme, if you will, the unification and the common theme of Market Square as a place. And there are two issues, and both of them speak for me against what is being proposed. With respect to the first, the Shaw Building, as I won't repeat everything I said at the last meeting, but the essence of it was that I find great consistency across the facade, from left to right, from top to bottom. There are no variations or deviations from that consistency in the architecture. Admittedly, the awnings were not there in the original, but the awnings that have been added were added in a manner that was consistent with the architecture. That is, they are consistent across the entire facade. And I find that to be very important. With respect to the unification of the square, there are, this all was developed, the awnings that are here and in other locations, as a part of a restoration and development of Market Square. And that was spoken to by a member of the public, Gail Hodges, at our last meeting, August 10, a member of the Preservation Foundation. And she spoke of John Vincey's work in developing what in fact is there, and the striped awnings being a part of that. And I didn't know that John had been involved. For those of you who don't know, John is a respected preservation architect in Chicago, and widely respected. Has worked on Sullivan work and Frank Lloyd Wright and all kinds of things. He's a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. And you know, it occurred to me, well, if I'm out of joint with other people's views on this, maybe I should check my bearings and see if I'm alone. And so I called up John Vincey and shared with him what is being proposed. So in a nutshell, just to, because my views are already known, I believe very much that the awning should be the same across the entire facade, and the fact that the green stripes are part of a theme that continues around Market Square, I think those should be the awnings. And if they're deteriorated, then they all should be replaced. Not use deterioration as an excuse to depart on a new theme or a deviation from it, from what is there. So I called John, and I just share what he told me. Based on what he observed and what's being proposed, he said the proposed alteration is, quote, the beginning of the end. I think this piggybacks on what happens if somebody comes up next month with their idea of a deviation. In short order, you lose everything that's there now, all of the unity of Market Square. He said the Shaw Building is a single entity and all the awnings should be the same. He said the proposed change will lose the whole concept of unification of the complex. I shared with him the goal of the petitioner to have identity for her business, which is admittedly a valid objective. And his statement was that if that is the goal to express their design ability, he said, quote, let your work speak for itself. You don't need to change the building. John's comment was that the building cannot be divided in half, as we see in this image. He said, I'm a strong defender of Shaw's work, and the proposed action is a defacement of the Shaw Building and the homogeneity of the complex. And I share those comments.
Well, with all due respect to John Vinci, he doesn't really have the final word on this. And I appreciate the perspective on it, but I do think that this is like the dilemma we're faced with all the time with older buildings in Lake Forest that don't have adequate closet space or adequate kitchens or enough garages or all the rest of the kinds of things that we see all the time, where we're compromising what we would love to see as an ideal for the utility of the building. And perhaps there's a line that we shouldn't go over, and this might be it. But from my perspective, there's a utility that is, we need to defend as well. And attracting businesses and giving them an address and letting, I understand letting your business speak for yourself, but I'm also a practical person, and I understand how hard it is to negotiate with a retail tenant who needs their brand identity. So, I see it both ways for sure.
Yeah, that seems to me to be the trade-off or the dilemma in my mind is, if it was a single tenant, it'd be a no-brainer. Right. It's with two commercial entities. They're all trying to get foot traffic and brand awareness in our community. It strikes me as, the conflict between preserving the Shaw structure and its intent in its entirety versus its practical use right now. And it really is trying to lure people in to say, well, what's going on? There's a new store. And if you have the same awnings and they're all replaced as a new tenant, I work in Market Square. I've grown up here. you look at a new place and you go, oh, well, what is it? And it draws you in, right? And if it's the same, it's not going to have that impact. And I don't know how much your business is walking. I imagine it's more referrals. And on the other hand, to Fred's point, from an academic perspective, it's really a no-brainer around, well, what maintains the integrity of the structure from a unifying facade?
No doubt about it.
It's simple,
Yeah.
And so it's really, our goal is to try to preserve and fight against the commercial tendencies that creep in to change our town. And you could say it dies 1,000 cuts, and this is the beginning of the end, or this is just kind of keeping up with modern times. Rents are high, it's tough to have a viable business. And this is something that's going to be required to attract companies in here to give it a go. I see both, and I kind of feel like we probably need to err on the protection side. I mean, because we're not the commercial committee, that to help businesses grow. I mean, at least last time I checked.
We'll find out.
But I'm not an architect either, so I really look for, because I really feel honored to listen to the three of you talk about the history of the town and the architects, and I think we really do need to preserve what we have and not take it for granted. At the same time, I'm a business person trying to grow and do things as well. So it's a challenge, but I kind of feel like we need to err on the, and maybe we hurt that business a little bit side.
Well, it's not neon, and it isn't,
Yeah.
it isn't brick
It's
and
not
mortar.
Eat at Joe's.
It isn't brick and mortar either. And I really appreciate all the work you've done, Fred, since the last meeting to find out more information. I think I maybe even mentioned that. I bet Fred is coming up with some other reinforced ideas, because that's how, that's his integrity and his sincerity on this. And I think we discussed at the last meeting, and I think I spoke even more in detail about the rhythms and all those things that make that striped awning special. But at the same time, it's not actually a part of the building, and it will deteriorate. So and as I said, I've deliberated about this quite a bit, and I really think that we're probably going to be okay if we do deviate. And if we do go with the green or the gray, I think that it's close enough that it will work.
May I add another point? Is that possible?
Briefly.
Yeah.
But
From a practical, or practical, but not just from a practical perspective.
Anna, can you grab the microphone, please?
Oh,
It's just right now.
yeah, from a practical perspective, there's a cost to even if changing the entire thing. We're bearing our own cost. That would be enormous cost for Lake Forest stores. It's very expensive. So I did, from a practical standpoint, trying to get everything the same. We'd love for them to go with gray, but it's very expensive.
Thank you. So on a vote?
Excuse me, can I just say one more thing? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Commissioner Swenson's issue on the trim. If you look around the front of Market Square on this very same building, all of the trim is a dark, almost charcoal gray color. If you look to the right on Southgate Cafe, it is almost a black color on all the windows on the same side of the street, as I believe we have a picture of as well. So I just wanted that to be, that's part of our thinking in what made our design consistent. Thank you.
Thank you.
So in particular, the courtyard, right?
Mhm.
I think that's what it's called, where the wine shop is.
Right.
That's all gray on that
Mhm.
side too. So there's some variation throughout the square. It's interesting. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, you can't see it from that color at all. They're almost gray,
Yeah.
gray black.
Thank you. Well, I mean, you pretty much know where Guy and I stand in terms of this. I think there's probably some nuances we could talk about, whether it's green or gray, or whether, we change the white or the trim, but, I think that we would support, allowing a variation to this. I think we understand pretty clearly what Guy's doing, so we just need kind of an indication from the other commissioners whether, you need more information, whether you have formed an opinion, whether you're ready to have a vote.
Yeah, I think maybe we go first around and say, are we in favor of gray? Because the awning seems to be driving the trim.
I think so.
And I don't know if I understand where Guy is around gray. He seemed good on green and gray. But if let's just vote on gray and say if everyone's good with gray, then we give them that latitude. Because I don't think we can say green or gray, because I don't feel the same about both.
No, that's right.
I don't think.
Yeah, that's right. So,
Or, I mean, Guy, you want to say something?
Well, I mean, if we want to make a motion for gray, is that what you're
no,
thinking?
I think I'm trying
I'm
to.
fine with gray, and I'm fine with green, so
Yeah.
I'm good on both of those.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Bless you.
sure.
I was looking, in the submittal tonight, there, and I'm sorry, I can't point at it, there was a statement by the petitioner that decision on the paint cannot be made until the decision on the awning is made. Am I paraphrasing that correctly? I read that. The decision is on white or not white would be tied to what is the awning decision. And I agree with that statement, by the way. And I agree with it to an even further extent. I've visited the site at least 10 times. I stopped counting since our meeting on August 10th. And in all of these recent weeks since that time, the awnings have been kept up. I mean, they're not in the down position for whatever the reason, and they're up. And what that did was to bring out the importance to me of the trim that we have really not, I think, given due attention to. I did not give due attention. In our meeting August 10, I didn't express any strong feeling about the trim and accepted the notion of white because, frankly, we weren't seeing it. Awnings were down in the images. We're not seeing what's back in the shadow, and I didn't have strong feelings about it. In the last 10 visits to the site, I got much stronger feelings about the trim. You see the whole building, it's almost like a ship. It's the whole Shaw building. That two-tone trim of green and white is very elegant. The whites are very thin, framed by the blue. And it's true of the windows there. It's true of the windows all around Market Square. If you're in Market Square and look at the upper level, you'll see all of the windows are that way. It pervades everywhere, and it's particularly strong on the Shaw building, all the windows, every level. And so I feel we went past the trim too quickly in that last meeting. So for me, it's not as a gray or a white or something. It doesn't change.
Okay.
It doesn't change.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing to understand it, because Fred would say what was there was what should be there.
Yeah.
If we don't have if we have a collective of people that don't want to change what's there, then we don't have to even talk about what it changes to. So I think we're pretty clear on that. And I do appreciate what your comment is on the detail of the white with the teal. I guess it's really teal and that green. And it might have even been an interesting compromise to do white and the gray, but no change is still no change. So what I'd like to do is advance the proceedings, and I just need to know what we need to do to advance the proceedings, if you folks need more information or not.
I'm ready to communicate my opinion.
Okay. And I think what I'm hearing is that we like the reading of the ordinance in terms of these three commissioners, and to support a solution that is green or striped green. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
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 We have another commissioner who would say, no, that's got to stay the way it is. I'm taking a vote without taking a vote. I'm not sure that's even legal, but. And then Guy and I would go in any direction. So I don't know that we're going to get a motion that would pass in any event. I need 4 commissioners to agree on something, so to pass any motion.
We'll just go down.
So I'll ask a
Sounds
staff
like
question.
Green-
I'll ask a
green or
staff
gray?
question.
Yes.
Kathy?
Green or gray? Green or gray? Is that the question?
No, I think what I'm trying to do, understand if there's any motion that would pass. And so I just want under clarification, I need 4 commissioners to approve something. What happens if I have if I don't get 4 commissioners, I can't approve anything? It's pretty simple,
Correct.
right? Okay. So if someone wanted to make a motion that had any way of passing, it would have to satisfy Guy, myself, Fred, and one other person. Or you can do the math any way you want.
Clarify where you stand again?
No change.
No
Is that-
change,
Is that, Fred?
no
kinda where you
change
said?
from green? Or no change from the current awning?
The awnings that are there, the striped awnings is what I believe should be there, and if they're deteriorated, I think they should be replaced with new striped awnings.
So if you
Okay,
were
so she-
proposing
With the
a
rest of the-
solid green awning, he would say, no, that's
Okay.
not,
I
that's,
would,
So
I would,
striped
not
awning.
in this building.
Yeah.
In some other location, in Lake Forest, some other, but not in the Shaw building
Right,
context, no.
okay.
yeah.
I think that if we try to agree on something that everyone will vote for, that isn't really the purpose of
No,
what the
I agree.
petitioner wants. So maybe what we do is we just try to make a motion to approve at least the green awning and the trim paint, and possibly even maybe make some kind of a condition with the trim paint, as it sounds like maybe there's some concerns about the requirement of the two-tone. I'm trying to think of something that at least that the petitioner will get some direction on. I mean, I don't think they want to hear us vote to keep everything the same, because that's not what you're petitioning for.
Well, I agree, there seems like there might be some support for a solid green awning. Is there? Solids, I mean, do you folks
Well,
like
I guess
that?
my position is, you know, I'm looking for more of a Lake Forest green that would
Mhm.
meet the ordinance, because I think what we're looking at, that sample was really dark.
Okay.
And it wasn't what I would consider Lake Forest green. I completely agree with what Fred's saying. I mean, you know, I think that's totally true. We have to keep that building, you know, as one unit. But we face this dilemma of, we've got two tenants in there, and my thought is maybe if you get one tenant to have new awnings that are the good green we like, when the other, he's ready to replace his awnings, maybe he'll follow suit and they'll be more compatible.
So maybe we're
I
saying
guess I have a
support the
question. There are
audience
two
of
tenants, but
ordinance.
isn't there one owner?
One owner.
Broad Acres is the owner. Broad Acres is the same people that hired John Vinci to do the study, that created these green awnings. So I don't understand how that would be a problem to do it again, replace them, that is.
Broad Acres isn't paying for the awnings.
Why don't we vote to support the ordinance or not support the ordinance?
Well, yeah, the ordinance is open. I mean, I think Kathy clarified that to us. We have the
Right.
ability
The ordinance
to
suggests
come
green,
up
but we
with
can
what we think is
alter.
appropriate given the
Okay.
site and
So
the
then it
specific
wouldn't be the
location.
ordinance, it would be-
So,
So we have to give the guidance.
I mean, I think in my ideal world, I'm with Fred, but I'm kind of shifting to compromise that says, you know what, I'd rather have some compatible green and some trim that gives them some ability to differentiate, and that all these awnings are gonna weather over a period of time. They just will, and they're never gonna be synchronized. I think you could go hardcore orthodox and say Fred only, and you could have a good argument for that. But at the same time, you know, it is a new business, and this is not a museum. This is a commercial district that we have to have a little bit of flexibility. I'm not comfortable with the gray because I think that is just a little bit in your face, and I think it's a big departure. Now, Fred would argue, well, it's a slippery slope, and why depart at all? And so, I mean, if two more people were pretty strongly in Fred's camp, I would say, you know what? That's probably the right thing to do. And then have it weather over a period of time, and they synchronize or they do. But, you know, barring the fact that they're never gonna be synchronized, well, let's pick a nice green and give them some ability to do that and be done with it. But I think the gray is, I don't know, it's still too much.
And what do you think about that particular shade of green?
Yes, yeah, I don't want to be in the color picking business. I want to be in the character preserving business, and I think green is more in keeping with the character of the town. I think gunmetal gray, you know, it's kind of has an urban feel to it to me. But, you know, that's just me. I mean, I think the ordinance says we have some latitude.
Uh-huh.
But that's the issue. Now, Fred, do you have any, is there anything that would change your
Well, yeah,
point of view at all?
no, I'm hearing, like, you gave me an idea when you say, you know, the awnings will deteriorate, and so we'll never have them the same. And it makes me think of what's needed as a creative solution for maintaining the unity of the theme, i.e. create a mechanism by which all of the awnings can be replaced together as they need to be, and maintain the unity in the theme of Market Square.
That's why I think we need a standard for color, just within the guidelines, just so we know what we're talking about, because we could talk all day about different shades of green. This is getting us nowhere, you know?
Otherwise, it's all just crumbling over time, and we said we couldn't do anything about it, and people need to express themselves.
Can I, Megan, do you have any thoughts after listening to tonight's deliberations about the color of green that we're talking about? You know, there's a funny joke about an Irish guy and it's green. I wish I could remember it. It might help the proceedings. But
You know,
would you be agreeable to us selecting a green for your awning, and for that green to be somehow considered to be a compatible green with the rest of the green in Market Square? That would be, I guess, the Lake Forest green. How do you feel about that? And then tell me exactly how you feel, as long as it's not too.
well, I
Right.
will. The green that I have proposed tonight, it virtually exactly matches the Southgate green. And that's the green that I felt was a really big compromise on my part, but also would work. So that's really the only green I'm comfortable with.
Could you show us the streetscape shot again?
These are the two different colors on Southgate. This is the green that matches our green. So it's, you can see
Yeah,
what happened there.
yeah, I'm not sure that the rest of the commissioners might appreciate that. On Southgate, there's two different color green, because in fact, one of the canopies was probably replaced later, and so it was replaced with a subtly different green color, and we do see that around town. Of course, it's a different building, but it's the immediate neighbor.
That's the darker green that she's picked, I believe, that would be the green that's in the foreground of the
That's right.
slide. It's a little hard to see in the slide.
Yeah, the comparison is the up close to this
Yeah.
one right here.
The green that
Green
is in
basically the same.
our handouts is a little easier to see.
That's the Southgate south awning, and that's our green sitting on top of it.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from that.
Yeah,
It's probably 15 years old.
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to do is try to figure out how to fashion a petition, I mean, a motion on the petition, so that if we either support it or deny it, at least they have something to go with from tonight. I think that's the best thing to do here. I think there's a constraint on time to some extent that we can't really.
That's right.
So if I were to make a motion that we approve the green selection by the petitioner, now the white trim has already been approved last month, and they would like to paint their trim white. I mean, they'd like to paint their trim green, solid green, to match this green. And I'm just wondering, now that's a change from the last motion and approval, so I think that kind of opens the discussion to the trim again. Am I going in the right direction, staff, as far as my, so I'm wondering, I would imagine that the awning is a real big deal breaker here. And I'm wondering if perhaps, rather than design this, I mean, the trim I'm talking about, if we can approve the awning and somehow take out the trim component or leave it to some kind of a staff condition. I'm not sure how to handle this one, Kurt. Some of you are thinking that you like the green that's on there. I don't think that matches that awning, the trim color of the
No.
sash.
No, I would, but that trim color,
Would we be agreeable to letting the green part of the two-tone be this color green to match the awning, and then the white remain? At least that would be a color scheme compatibility, except it would be a different color green.
well,
Is that too much?
I'd like to hear the other commissioners' thoughts on that. Frankly, from my point of view, on the trim of the windows,
Yeah.
I kind of fall into Fred's camp. You're either doing what's the same trim everywhere, or you're doing something different. So I actually don't mind it being white. I don't mind it being green. and I don't mind it being what it is, but I do think that you don't want to have green and white of one shade of green and white and then green and white of another shade of green and white. I just as soon see it be different in that case. So I would say fine to white, I would say fine to green, you know.
All right, well, then I think maybe I should make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the green awnings as submitted and the trim color to be changed to green to match that awning, the choice of which is the...
Can I, just so I'm not confused, so Fred's suggesting that the trim be painted to match existing.
I think Fred would want
Right.
the awning and the trim to remain unchanged.
Okay, but the trim color should be match existing, right? What's on the rest of the building, you do the green and white trim.
I may not have expressed myself clearly. I'm suggesting the trim theme now, which is two colors, which is everywhere, the same two colors, stay the way it is everywhere.
Okay.
All right, I think I have a way to do this motion.
And I'm thinking, I wonder if we get
I
the
get it.
color of
Can-
green
yeah,
from
yeah, I understand.
to match existing.
Kathy, can I do a two-part motion? Can I make a motion about the green of the awning and then make another motion about the trim color? Okay,
If I could also just interject that the petitioner is also looking for plaques, so make sure that is included in your motion, that there be 2 plaques adjacent to the doorway. It was,
Oh, a plaque.
you can do that as a separate motion,
I see.
but I just didn't want it to get lost.
Does anyone have any questions about the plaque? Seeing as how we've not,
I'd like to comment. I think the
Please
plaque
do.
is very nice. I like the plaque.
can we just approve the plaque?
what color's the plaque?
Leave the rest the way it
You know,
is.
Guy, I'm not sure, let's just talk about whether you make 2 motions or not. I mean, I think what we were talking about before is that the color of the frame, of the trim, is relevant to the color of the awning. Does anybody else feel that way or not? Did you care, I mean, is Guy on the right track?
I
Guy's
think,
trying to
I
engineer
think Guy's on the right track. I
Okay.
think it's a motion to keep the trim the same color per Fred, and then the green awning that's been proposed.
Well,
Is that what you're saying?
I think it depends on how we prove the awning,
All
so
right,
maybe
let's
I
see.
should do that
Let's
first.
hear
Yeah,
your-
let's
let's hear
I
your
make, I would like
motion,
to,
Guy.
I would like to present a motion to approve the awning color green per the petitioner's selection.
The motion has been made by Commissioner
Seconded.
Berg, seconded by Commissioner Prushlock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry, I need to count those again. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Did you-
Opposed, nay.
Right.
So that motion would carry 4 to 2. I also supported that motion, sorry. Now would you like to try something else?
Well, with regard to now the petitioner understands that they got their green awning approved, and I didn't try the gray because I didn't think the gray was going to pass. Now we have to address potentially the idea of the trim color. And we already approved white, and the petitioner would like to have the trim color match the green of the awning that we've just approved, if they're gonna be putting up the green. So I think maybe, Kurt, should we just do a little internal poll here? Who would be in favor of that being all green to match the awning?
Sure.
Doesn't look like there's too many people. If I even said I consider it, I would be a definite minority.
I would consider it.
So there's 2.
Yeah.
I think there has to be some light.
I think just keep it the same.
I think follow the rest of the.
Well, I have to point out that we've already approved it as all white.
As white.
Or was
So
it-
No.
As all white.
yeah,
So
so
now
that,
it's, now the choice is not, is all white or something else, I believe. In light of that,
well, we've approved white. That's already done.
yeah,
Now, we haven't, I mean, we could approve the green to match the awning, but it doesn't look like that's gonna be carrying enough votes. So really, to keep it the color that is in the building, Megan doesn't need any approvals from us to do that, because it already is that color. So I guess, in a sense, I could go through the motions of making the motion and say, I make a motion to approve the change in the color of the trim to be green to match the awning, and we could second that, and then make a vote, and then it would be turned down and denied. So should we go ahead and do that? Somebody want to second that motion?
I'm sorry, Guy, you're making a motion to?
I'm going to make a motion to approve the change in trim color to be green to match the awnings that we just approved.
All right, I think that you should make that motion. Motion's been made by Commissioner Berg. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
There's a second by Commissioner Preschlack. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
There's 3 of those. So that motion does not carry, and I think that that's all we have on this.
So then it's white,
It's
right?
white.
Which is not in keeping with the
Well,
existing.
it could also be the existing. I think that that's,
Yeah.
she doesn't,
Okay, well, I mean, if we approve white and that gets shut down, then, I mean, I guess if there's any deviation to what's been approved, then they'd have to come back.
that's right.
That's it.
I think that's it. I don't have any other,
You can make a motion for the signage.
what's that?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
make a motion that we approve the plaque as submitted by the petitioner.
Seconded.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Berg, seconded by Commissioner Preschlack. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one was unanimous. So that, thank you for not hinging that approval on changing the trim color. And that's as good as we can do for you this evening. Hopefully that works for you. The staff is free to ask us for other motions, other agenda time, et cetera, but that's the best we can do this evening. So.
Can I just make this comment
Sure,
again?
please do.
You know, I would really like to consider some kind of, I don't even know if you can do this, I don't even know, but some kind of ordinance where we have some kind of standard for awnings in Market Square in the Central Business District. I mean, this is kind of crazy, you know, then I think it would make our deliberations so much easier. There would be no confusion. Everyone knows what we're talking about. We want to keep consistency. We don't want to go down the slippery slope of, you know, having all these different colors. It just would make it so much easier if we were really specific about what we wanted in Market Square.
And I would just like to say, I'm sure the shop is going to be beautiful, but again, I really worry about what's going to happen next month when someone else wants a gray, you know, and then we're looking at them and saying, well, no, and then that's not fair. So that was my problem with approving the gray.
All right, well, thank everybody out there for sticking with us on that one. Our next petition is a request for certificate of appropriateness approving a pool house on landscaping at 335 North Green Bay Road. And I'll ask the commissioners if anyone has any conflict on this one. And I see none, so as soon as you can settle in, I'll let you start. Oh, yeah, there you go.
There were no waivers.
No, not at all.
Not them, not
No,
anybody.
no.
Everybody lost.
Yeah, I agree.
That shouldn't happen.
Well, we do our best. Yeah.
That's not good enough.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Parris, Commissioners. Thank you for taking this extra night this month for this meeting. That's a lot of effort, so appreciate that. And my name is John Krasnodubsky. I'm the architect for this project, and we're here tonight to ask for approval for a pool house, a pool, and a landscape plan. I'm joined here tonight by the homeowners, Aaron and Justin Foley, and our landscape architect, John Mariani, and his assistant, Tara. So we've put a good team together to do this project. And the pool house is in the backyard, and I'll start to show you some photographs of the rear yard. This one here is a view towards the pool house. We did string out the pool in the pool house. I don't know if you had a chance to go see that. The pool, which was strung out, includes the pool deck, so that's part of it. And then the pool house sits just east of the pool. This view is looking from, you can barely see the outline of the pool with this yellow string here. So that's the pool deck edge. So we're standing where the pool house doorway would be. And so we're looking back at the home, looking westward. So we'll go to the drawings of the pool house. So this is a sketch of the front elevation of the pool home. And it's we're taking its cues from the original home. So the scale is obviously scaled down but there are many elements of it that relate to the existing home. The elements of the hip roof and the roof material, the symmetry of the building, the two wings, two pavilions that are connected by a middle hip roof. Those are very similar to what's happening on the existing main home. The brick is to match the existing home. We were here several months ago for a porch approval on the addition, and so we're taking some cues of the porch elements that are on the existing home and incorporating them into the pool house. So you can see here the wood columns that project out from the main block of the home, and we also have a balustrade on top of the flat roofed porch. We do have a chimney in the background in the middle. We have windows that are wood with details that match the existing home. The brick mold and the sill detail and the shutters all match. The brick matches the roof, matches the columns match. So it's a very strong symmetry, but very simple and very elegant. It meets all of the setback guidelines on the property. It meets all the bulk ordinances for the property. We're 5,000 square feet under on the bulk, so quite substantially under. And so it's a perfect place for the pool house. It doesn't affect any major trees on the property. We explored other options. We looked at next to the home, just to the south of the home. That affected many things in that part of the property. So we felt that this was the best solution, and it offers a very nice focal point from the backyard, looking back towards it, and vice versa, looking from the pool house towards the home. You get to enjoy how that looks from the pool home. So I'm going to go into some further detail on the well, let's quickly, I'm not going to dwell too much on the site plan since there's a lot of landscape here that John is going to speak to. But I just want to show you where it sits on the property. And you can see off to the west, or excuse me, the east, you can see where the pool is. And these are the two pavilions connected by the main living area of the pool house. So that's where it's located. And this is a computer-generated elevation of the pool house. And you can see everything is noted to match the existing home. And the rear elevation, even though this is not a very visible elevation, the sides or the rear are pretty much not viewed by anybody. There's significant landscape on the property. So, but anyways, there's symmetry on the back side as well. These are windows, and you see the chimney, it's all brick. Wood, softened fascia, slate roof, wood windows, wood doors. I'm going to blow up on the roof plan to get a feel for. This is the front, and so this is the balustraded portion of the porch, and then we have the large hip roof, the chimney in the back, and then the two hip wings on the sides. So it offers a very nice symmetry. It's a low roof line. The roof lines match the slope of the existing home. So I think we really took time to match the cues of the existing home so it all blends in very well. So I'm going to hand it over to John to talk about the landscape plan. I can just touch on the pool house very briefly, or the pool, excuse me. It's going to have a bluestone pool deck. The porch has a bluestone surfacing on it. And that's also very similar to what's happening on the terracing and the stoops of the main home. So there's a very good tie-in there as well. So I'm going to go over to the landscape plan, and I think John can talk about that. And then I'll just do a little blow up there. Okay, all right. Yeah, thanks.
John Mariani Landscape. I could, this is the first time I've used this here. That's right, I've got it. I think I've got it, yeah. Okay, let me, if I could, orient you to the site. The drive entry in Green Bay Road off to this direction to the west. We come up the driveway to the house. This is the area that we're considering for redesign to bring you up to the center of the home. So that we've got a straight-on shot to the center of the home where the facade is balanced. We're trying to take into consideration here a landscape that complements the architecture, the balance in the architecture, a palette of materials that are more of a traditional type, boxwoods, arborvitaes, those sorts of things. that eventually transitions off into the natural landscape, some very, very mature oak trees, in fact. Driveway comes down to the new entrance here. This is the pool location. Terraces, this being restored, this one being restored, a connection between the two. We're simply adding another one here, which makes sense with the way that they entertain. And then, of course, we're landscaping to tie that into the house. Screening to the neighbor to the south. It's actually a home that we managed and I designed and installed back in the early 80s. All the landscape and hardscape for this home to the south. They're still clients of mine. And then a hedge. Now, this is the most interesting element, I think. We're trying to take full advantage of the lawn area. These represent the existing trees, and of course, those are all going to stay right where they are. We're going to accommodate those. And it's a very unobtrusive landscape, and in fact, this hedge has moved up about 15 feet closer to the house now so that we can allow for this, the wooded landscape along this side to remain. There's going to be a 20-foot wooded setback here that we will not enter into whatsoever. And we're going to landscape in front of that. And then this hedge acts as the transition and the framework between the formal landscape of the gardens of the, around the home and in the yard and the wooded area beyond. So it's a nice, clean, crisp framework, much like you'd see at the edge of a lawn, only it's three-dimensional in a low hedge. And then the entire yard is being re-graded and sodded. Right now, there's an old orchard in this area here of trees that are pretty much, they're pretty much shot. They don't produce fruit anymore. It's a somewhat shadier site than it probably was originally, and of course, we're accommodating that with shade-tolerant grasses, turf, and plant materials. Little croquet court putting green here, garden here, where we're catching as much sun as we can in the afternoon. And then the hedge ties, not only borders the yard, but also ties the pool and this architecture of the pool house in with the rest of the house to make it feel like it belongs.
Great.
Thank you.
I think that's it for our presentation.
Okay.
So I'll answer any questions you have. Thanks.
All right, perfect. How about a staff report?
Thank you, Chairman Peretz. The commission approved the additions and alterations to the main house several months ago. I think it was back in March. And one of the conditions of approval at that time was that any additional outbuildings, pools, significant changes to the landscaping that indicated removal of the any significant tree be brought back to the commission for consideration. So that's the basis for why this petition is before you. I won't speak too much on the pool and pool house. I think the architect did a very good job of explaining that project in terms of compatibility and appropriateness. There are positive findings in the staff report. In general, staff is supportive of the project overall. The city's certified arborist did review the project. He's visited the site several times and does feel strongly that the exterior or the perimeter of this property remain in a wooded state. As was shown in the packets, there were some spruce trees that were really close to the property line. One of the conditions of approval this evening in the staff report is that those spruce trees either be moved back or replaced with a different type of plant material, more dense woodland character type plants. I think what the arborist and staff in general sees as very important on this property is the preservation of the mature oak trees and making sure that any regrading or alteration to the landscaping does not negatively impact those trees. So the conditions of approval really do speak to that objective. The drive change in the front of the property does require the removal of one very large tree. The arborist has looked at that, accepts the loss of that tree, and has reviewed the overall landscape plan and found it to be in compliance with the ordinance. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. How about questions or comments from the commissioners to either the staff or the...
I have a question about removal Is the inch for inch requirement necessary with the removal of the big oak and then the orchard trees? Is that met in this petition?
We are asking for inch replacement in either on this property or in terms of payment in lieu of inches. We don't want to over plant the property and make sure that we are working within good forestry practices.
Okay. And, you know, I had another question actually for Mr. Mariani. You know, I sat on the BRB for 6 years, saw a lot of landscape plans, and learned a lot from you. So I just have a question about one thing that I know the city forester had mentioned to us is when you start messing with oak trees, there's a certain bacteria in the ground that they thrive on. And if you disrupt that, within 2 years, you're going to lose oaks that are even far away from your construction zone. So is there a plan in place for when you start messing around with that driveway for those mature oaks to preserve them?
If you look at the original, the driveway that's there right now versus the driveway that we're putting in, there actually is very little change. We're changing some grades, but not in a way that would ever affect the trees, because the footprint of the driveway, except for just in front of the house to the left upper corner there, is pretty much the same. We're changing the curve coming in and we're pushing it over a few feet, but it should not impact the trees. I'm pretty picky about oak trees myself. I happen to be restoring my own 60-acre savanna in Wisconsin. I'm very particular about my oak trees, and we're trying to have as little impact as possible. Same goes, if you look, again, there's two little vehicles there in the drawing. You'll see where the trees are. The closest oaks are there. Where the driveway is right now is about 10, maybe at most 15 feet from that area, but we're not really impacting those trees. In the meantime, though, even though we feel we're not impacting the trees, this property is going to be under a tree program that it hasn't been under in forever. Okay, so I think that in any case, we're going to do everything to not impact the trees that are there, and then we'll be caring for them after the fact. We hopefully will be maintaining the property after we're done, and we'll certainly have a tree service working there on site and watching these trees, because of course they're so important. So we're taking them seriously.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments to the staff or the petitioner? This is an opportunity for the public for any public testimony, if there is any. And I see none of that, so we can deliberate if there's any deliberations.
I'll go ahead and say, you know, John, I think it's a beautiful design. It matches the house very well using compatible materials. It complements the house. So I think it's a beautiful design, well thought out landscape plan. So I think it's a good petition.
I concur, as they say. We'd like a non-controversial item. Anything else? I'll ask for a motion.
Well, I just had a comment.
There you go. Sorry.
I too think that everything has been very well resolved and thought through, and I'm in favor of the petition.
There you go.
Absolutely. I just had a question / comment, no condition at all with it. I was just wondering on the rear elevation, which is really quite handsome in that it's so simple, you know, and so much like the house. I was wondering, you're calling out for flush doors with no panels as far as the elevational treatment. And I tried to see if the neighbor was close enough back there, and it didn't appear that he was too close, but I was just wondering, this is the height of the leaves haven't fallen yet, and I'm just wondering if maybe are those going to be hollow metal doors? Is that what you're thinking of there?
Right. Yes.
You can get raised panels in that, though.
Yes, you can.
And I'm just thinking for the sake of the scale, because the windows are beautiful that you have there and so forth, I'm just wondering if that might not be a nice thing to do neighborly wise in case in the wintertime they actually do see that more than not. And in that vein, I was wondering, your side elevation for, I'm sure planimetric reasons, doesn't have any windows on it. And so you don't have fenestration creating any rhythm. And in your aerial photograph, it doesn't look like we have anybody that's going to see that other than maybe the actual owner, were they to go a little obliquely. I'm just wondering, is there a way you could almost put some brickwork paneling or some kind of a raised rhythm across there, maybe divided into thirds? I mean, just as a thing to think about. Because, you know, you did do that nice compatible tripartite or, you know, massing on the front and back that you take from the main house, you know. It's just a thought. It might be kind of nice. That way you don't have that, maybe in the reality of the 3 dimensions, you'll see the nice front, and then the side might be a little bit too bleak, perhaps.
Some
So,
trellis work or something.
well, it might be he could have the mason build it in with just like a half-inch reveal or something like that. Anyway, it's just a thought, no conditions or anything.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just, hey, you know, just a thought.
a nice catch.
But I'm in favor of it completely.
All right, I'll still ask for a motion.
Well, I make a motion, we approve the petition as presented with all the all the staff approval points. They're really long. Do you want me to read all those?
No, you don't have to. With the staff
Okay,
approval.
what's detailed in the staff recommendation, and I think that's good.
All right, the motion's been made by Commissioner Atkinson,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Berg. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That one passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Nice job. All right, so we skip over the 333 East Woodland Road, which has been pulled from tonight's agenda and by the petitioner. And a new petition is a request for a certificate of appropriateness approving an addition to an existing garage at 2 North Awani Road. I'll ask the commissioners if there's any ex parte concerns on this, and I see none. So whenever you're ready, feel free to jump in.
Good evening. My name is Mark Hauser. Actually, my wife and I are the new owners of this lovely property at 2 North Awani. We actually had 4 things that we actually were proposing to do to this property. However, after numerous discussions with Megan, the pergola breezeway piece for this property was just too complicated to do in a short time. And so we have actually delayed that, you know, pending further review and consideration. So what we're requesting basically is really 4 things. The first of which is to repair and resurface the asphalt driveway that's part of the property. We would like to add an additional bay to the non-historic garage that was built in 1993. We would like to actually, in preparation for a pergola or breezeway into the house in the future, would like to propose that the exit from the garage, which is currently in this location right here, be moved to this location at the back side of the garage. As you will note, this is the east wall of the house where the door is. That's completely linear to the garage. So an exit at the garage at this location would allow us to build a breezeway that would be completely linear to the east side of the house. And again, we're not proposing to do that currently. The other thing that we would like to do is expand the patio of this home with some additional landscaping and also Brussels block, which is currently what's done on the current patio and the pergola, which is located in this particular area here. And I'm assuming, okay. This particular view really is just a drawing showing basically the current and then the proposed additional stall for the garage. We're not proposing to make any changes to the materials. The materials will be the same. The elevation of the roof will be the same. There will be no impact to any trees. There are no trees that would be close to this in any way. And of course, the addition is away from the house, so there's no concern relative to foundation, etc. A few pictures just to show you. This is the area in question to the north. As you can see, there's a very large area here. It's roughly 15 feet until there's any type of vegetation, and there are really no trees until one gets quite a bit farther north on the property. Again, this is the way the garage currently sits. The intention would be that the north stall would look really identical to the south stall, so that we would have a single car here, the double car garage here, and then another single car garage that would look entirely compatible with that. Again, just a picture here to demonstrate that, again, this is the closest tree in back. Nothing that we would do in this area over here would be actually closer than the current garage. And this particular picture gives some idea about the landscaping, but also indicates where the new door would be and gives one an impression about the linear direction that the future pergola or breezeway could take. We've put these particular drawings together. This really, again, is the front view of the proposal. This now shows the addition of the garage to the north. The rear elevation shows the exit from the garage here, with the lateral view showing a very small portico. The posts for this would be actually exactly the same as the pergola posts, except the pergola posts are 8 by 8. The posts for what we're proposing here, because it's smaller, would be 4 by 4. So it would be the same design, same color, similar material. They would just be smaller than the posts that are on the current pergola. So basically, that would be the change that we would be requesting relative to moving the exit from the garage. I show this merely to indicate basically currently what's here on the patio and the pergola. Obviously, this is the butcher block walkway that's currently here. The current exit from the garage would be approximately in this location here. We're proposing to remove this, remove part of the landscaping, and extend the patio into this area here. And I think, as you can start to see, there is a natural decline in the grade out toward the east part of the property that we will use as part of expansion of the landscaping plan with the additional patio. These additional pictures basically show, again, landscaping that is to the north of the current patio. This landscaping would all be maintained, and the new patio would actually start in this area here and then would go down to the east. We anticipate that there would be somewhere between a 14 and 20-inch drop to get down to the main level of the yard in this area. There would either be 2 or 3 steps ultimately going down to the new patio area. We would propose to maintain a certain amount, roughly 3 or 4 feet of the current vegetation on this side of the garage, and then move all of the existing vegetation as part of the additional new landscaping plan. And you can see here, just for orientation, this is the current patio with the pergola. This is the current existing vegetation that I pointed out on the previous picture. We would intend to, again, have the same butcher block paver patio here. Again, as I mentioned, there would be a single step here and either one or two here, depending upon the actual natural grade. We would landscape completely around this extended patio, and basically there would be a small wall around this particular lower patio. So basically there would be continuity of the landscaping, basically that would be very analogous to the landscaping that's currently there. So that we would maintain the same basically sort of rectangular or circular structure that is currently present on the current patio. So that's what we're proposing to do. I'd be happy to answer any questions, given that I'm the homeowner and not the builder or the architect. I think that's all that I had.
Thank you. Let's see if we have a staff report, and we'll start there.
Thank you, Chairman Peretz. You do have a staff report.
Thank you.
Just to orient the commission to this property, this is one of 4 properties that's accessed from a private drive off of Awani Road. It's a fairly straightforward petition. As the homeowner mentioned, there are some future aspects of this project that are not currently being reviewed by the commission. We are bringing forward just the modification to the garage with an extension of a 4th garage bay and the relocation of the man door to the back of the garage, with the intention that that project does stand alone in its own right. And when some sort of connector piece from the main house to the garage is proposed, the commission will review that separately. The garage, it was built in 1993. The house itself was built in 1928 and is considered a contributing structure to the district, to the Green Bay Road Historic District. The garage extension that's proposed really provides minimal impact to the site. There's already a pretty large motor court, in that area, so there'll be minimal need to increase the pavement. And the intent is to really match the roof line and the materials that are currently on the garage. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I will add that at your places this evening there was correspondence from the neighbor to the west in support of the project. Also just reiterate that your motion this evening should be focused on the garage extension and modified entrance to the garage. Thanks.
Thanks, Megan. All right, any questions or comments to either the staff or the commission or the petitioner from the commissioners? Pretty straightforward. This is 330 by 218 square feet, so a very large site, and we're kind of well protected from neighbors, so I'm not surprised that the neighbors are happy to support this, and I didn't have any comments for you. The only comment I would have is on your garage doorway, I'd be okay if you went big, the 8x8 versus the 4x4. I mean, I like it when you embrace the details of the existing construction and bring them into the new stuff. So, but I wouldn't make it a condition. It'd be just something to think about, and whether that little entry is just a little appendage or a little bit more gracious appendage off the garage. I think you could work out with staff when you do your drawings. There might be some elbow room for that kind of thing on this kind of a project. Any other thoughts from any other commissioner? Then I'll go ahead and ask for a motion.
A motion to accept the petition with the following items for approval, the staff outlined as submitted.
All right, the motion's been made by Commissioner Prushlock. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by the rest of the commissioners. I'll pick Commissioner Swenson for that. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No, any opposed? No opposed, so that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Good luck with that. All right. We're cooking now. There are two more, so bear with us here. We got the next petition is a request for a certificate of appropriateness for signage at the Koenig and Stray Real Estate Office at a new proposed location at 280 East Deer Path. And I'll ask the commissioners if there's any conflict. And I see none, so I'll look forward to the presentation. No problem, take your time. We're everybody okay? Anybody need a break? We all good? Good. But I understand. No. But yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Most of these professional landscapers just blow these properties away. No, I understand. No, that was really to do that because I did not want to do
Exactly.
That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, I was trying to hang on.
I'm surprised they did that.
Look under review. Doing this first slide. Under review.
Right. Yeah. True.
Yeah. He's saying that I should tell him. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
This is a pretty simple petition, but I did want to bring this up because I think this slide says a lot. I would think pretty much the discussion. This is our petition. I'm Peter Whitmer, Whitmer and Associates, and our topic tonight is the sign for Kenning and Stray on Deer Path. What we're proposing to do is take their existing sign off Western Avenue and move it over to Deer Path. And we looked at it. One is that scale appropriate for this building, and is it compatible? And I think we had a meeting with staff and really reviewed that, and it meets the guidelines and criteria in terms of size. And I think that its location between below the second-story windows and above the existing first-floor windows makes it for a pretty good candidate to move here. What we're proposing to do with the sign is basically to change the color of it. The current sign is white with green letters, and what we proposed to do was have it basically flipped around, white letters with green, and then paint the frame in white. But I think through the staff report, and I agree with it, I think it looks better and is less bold in terms of if we actually paint the frame green too. So it really received it. And I think it's a real positive. The one thing that's unique about this space is the original Color Bank used to be there, and so they had both spaces, which they had signage here and they had signage here. This is unique because they're really only renting this piece of it. This is another tenant. So this is one of the smaller pieces to fit, we look to fit in there, but we really don't think that that's probably enough signage for them. Then the other piece of the petition is to have a door sign, and what we proposed was to have two, and I think staff report suggests one, and I would agree. I think one is probably plenty, and we really don't need to duplicate that. There are two panes of glass in this door. This is the existing door, and I think one next to the handle on the push side probably is plenty in terms of that. So I would agree with that comment too. With that, I think I just put it back to the commission and for comments and questions.
All right. Staff report?
Not much to add. The sign isn't intended to match the truck that's parked in front. That is a little distracting.
It's like a 1970s. No, that's our truck.
The initial petition proposed just relocating the sign from Western Avenue to Deer Path, and as we talked about it, that just didn't seem quite right. So I think the decision on the part of the petitioner to switch the coloring to have the background darker and the lettering white, I think does help it to fit better into this space. This is considered a band sign. It is appropriately located. As Mr. Whitmer said, it does meet the size, location requirements of the code. As you look at this block of Deer Path, the north side between Western and Bank Lane, there really is a variety of signage. You have Walgreens, which has the old backlit sign, which the code doesn't permit today. You have some shingle signs. The directory for the arcade is a shingle sign. When Caldwell Banker was here, they had a window sign in the transom there, which didn't necessarily speak strongly on the streetscape. So staff is supportive of this proposal. I think both with the color change, with the elimination of the strong white border, and with the limitation of the door sign to just one. Although we understand the interest in symmetry, it just seems like to be consistent with the code, we don't want to be redundant with signage, and simply noting the name of the store once at that location meets the need. So staff recommends approval, and I think, I don't remember if you have conditions. You do have just two conditions, so we recommend approval of the sign as presented, subject to those conditions.
All right, thank you, Kathy. And I do have one question for you. The door will be shared by the other tenant as well, or no?
No. Basically what we'll be doing, we haven't designed this yet, but when we get a tenant for here, we will put a new door. There used to be a door in here. This was the door up to the apartments above.
Okay.
And this was a door in the space. So this will only be the door for that
I see.
space.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions or comments for the?
Kathy, excuse me, did you say the sign was lit, illuminated?
No, I mentioned
okay.
that the Walgreens sign is illuminated.
Oh, okay, I thought, okay.
No,
And she said the
no
trim
illumination
was
was proposed.
eliminated.
Oh, well, illuminated, okay, just wanted to check.
And the sign we're voting on is the one up top left?
Correct. That actually shows what, does that show white around the trim too on that one?
It's my inability to Photoshop really precisely quickly. So no, it's going to be all green right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It does have little.
I'm pretty good that I could pick that up from here. I certainly can't see it on this one.
Comment?
Sure, if you have a question or comment.
Yeah, well, it's a comment. I think it's been a good evolution of where it started and where it has gone with the staff suggestion and the green background. Excellent. My comment is that regarding the symmetry, the arrangement over the window that it's above, when it's a white frame, it is clearly symmetrical, but when it goes to the green, the graphic weight is actually to the left of center, just because the lettering, the candy constraint, is bigger than what follows it. And so I just throw this out, and I'd be interested in other commissioners' comments, and I could be maybe talked out of it for this instance, but I would be intending to move the sign about 1.5 feet to the right, so that the candy constraint, the graphic is centered above the window. And the tag is just off to the side, and with the notion that it's not the frame or the green background that is the visual element, it is actually the lettering that's what's getting our attention, and that the lettering is off center just because of the graphic weighting of the size of the lettering. So that's my comment. Move it slightly to the right. But I can be talked out of it. Guy, you may have another opinion about that.
That's interesting that you say that, and I was wondering when you were talking if, Pete, you don't happen to have a paper printout of that, because these slides don't read as well as the papers. I've noticed that all night, and that's just a function of the way this stuff, the cookie crumbles that way, I guess. It might be that it looks a little more centered if you could get the whole thing in vision, the green. Is that green, the background? Is it gray? What is it, gray background again?
The background's green.
Green?
Right.
Yeah, but what color green? What are you doing?
It's Lake Forest green. It's Altunian Lake Forest green.
Altunian green,
All
we have a
right,
new
well,
color.
we will assume that.
So now-
It's an interesting point, because I think you're exactly right.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that one is that the windows are actually centered above this elevation too.
Yes.
And so you start to pick up that edge, and I'm just wondering if, even though you see a little white there, when you shift it over, you get this it's kind of nice that they're in the center of those.
I agree with that.
I
I think it's such a nuance.
But you know what I think in that sign, too? I'm
Very
sorry.
seldom do you stand across the street
that's
and back.
the
You
real-
really do it obliquely.
The reason that it's longer is because there's this
Yeah,
real
there's that
living
real
thing
living.
on
You
there
don't see that really on the-
that's tailing off, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now are you making a new sign, and are you going to get?
It's
No, we're
relocation.
painting the old sign. We're being green, and we're going to use what we have.
Because actually,
Gotcha.
to be an aesthetic, just to be aesthetically a pain in the neck here, it would actually be more attractive if the sign was not so long and it just was Koenig and Stray. That would push it to the center,
Cut off the.
and it would make it line up with those heavier pilasters that were flanking the original door. And it might not look as obtrusive that way, but
That would
that's
be nice.
that's if I was trying to do this really pretty. But
I'm pretty sure that the
It-
people on the end there that's an important.
Yeah,
so
probably
they
that's
paid a
their
lot of
logo
money
deal.
For the stock to buy out Canning and Stray,
yeah,
and so
Yeah.
they do. That's part
Yeah.
of the name.
sure.
We did have that discussion,
Yeah, we
and
did talk
the
about that.
corporate name does include the real living. What I would suggest is, since you have the sign and you're repainting it, we could certainly do an on-site with you as you do the installation, and we could, play with that 1.5 feet, unless the commission feels strongly one way or another.
I'm up for that. Because I think when you stick it up there, you're gonna say,
Yeah, I think the board of it, well, when you see it up there, probably will center itself.
I think so too.
And the real living is got to go with the Koenig and Stray because of the deal with the ownership of it. So,
I agree. Okay.
and this is a wall sign. In our height is 14 feet above the pavement for this stuff. Is it?
it's in the 12.
Yeah, this is in the 8 foot to 12 foot range, and it complies with
Sure.
the size lettering that's allowed within that area.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to ask if there's any public testimony, since we kind of glossed over that real quick, and I see none, so that we've done that. And now I'll ask for deliberations, if anyone's got any other deliberations or And it's attractive sign. I think that we've given some interesting comments to Mr. Whitmer, and if he has any other ideas, he could work it out with staff. I'll ask for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the submittal as presented with the modification of the green background. And perhaps staff would like to monitor the installation to assure that the symmetry is achieved per our deliberations and our concerns, but that's the motion.
And you want to include the staff recommendations as well as the vinyl lettering? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion's been made by Commissioner Berg and seconded by Commissioner Moyer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that one also passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next agenda item is, I believe this is our last agenda item for petitions, is a request for certificate of appropriateness approving a partial demolition, reconstruction, alterations, and the construction of an addition and new garage at 440 East Illinois Road. I'll ask if anyone has any conflict on this, and I see none. Thank you. So go ahead and set up and fire when ready, as they say. Yep, it won't be the last one.
Hello, my name is Neil Gertis. My company name is AKL Architectural Services, and I'm here representing JR and Lori Losi for the project at 440 East Illinois. This is probably going to be your tough one for the day. By the way, I did go to Dubai as well. I graduated in 1990, and I think you were my dean. Is that true?
No.
No?
There was another Moyer
Oh,
in
okay.
Illinois, Chris Moyer.
Okay, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice try, though.
Yeah. Thought I might have an
I'm call him right now.
We'd have to kick Fred out.
Here's some pictures of 440 East Illinois. Front elevation, you can see right here. This house, to give you a little history on this, it was built around the turn of the century. We have not found any recorded documentation of the actual date of construction. It's our belief that this was built as a four-square residence. And I'll show you evidence in some of the information I have later on to show why that is our belief. As you can see, the front elevation is not a very cohesive elevation. The front porch is a portion of the front elevation. The windows don't line up. There are some elements that really should be addressed here to make the house look as it should have looked originally. By the way, this is in the historic district. However, it is not a historic residence as it was found by the Historic Preservation Committee back in, I think it was 1989. As I said, this was built probably around the turn of the century, and there were several additions put on this house, and we'll get into a little bit more of that as we go. But the additions that we know of were probably in the mid-century for a part of an addition off the second floor in the back, as well as a 1981 addition of a gable off the rear. And you can see part of that gable at the very top of these drawings. And then a 1989 addition that really was the majority of addition to this home that really spans most of the back area of the home. I'll kind of show you in plan some of the ideas of what happened. Basement plan, this I believe was the existing footprint of the home. It was a four-square home in this area with an extension off the back on the first floor only that I think it originally contained the kitchen. Second floor was a later addition, as we will find out as we go forward. Here's the first floor plan. Again, this was the original four-square footprint with the existing protrusion off the back that was, I think, original. And the reason we feel that is that the existing cement block foundation extends from here all the way to there. On the north side, it only extends from there to there. So we believe that this was the original footprint of the home. This over here that you see was the 1989 addition on the first floor, as well as, shown here. And on the second floor, this was the original 4-square home. This was an addition at some other point. We don't know that. We don't have what date that was actually built off of. But again, there's some evidence to show that this was an addition. One, that it steps down from this floor level to here by 1 stair. Also, it steps in about 1 foot, 1 foot 1 inches from the south building line, pushes in that location. As you can see on the side elevation, the original 4-square building is shown in this area here with that 1 foot projection or recess into the house structure at that point. So again, I believe that this was an addition at one point. We don't know that date. The second floor roof was an addition in 1981, and the major portion in the rear side of the house was 1989. When looking at the site plan, you can see our home versus the area, the home to the north at 436 and the home to the south at 442. The site widths, the lot widths are 50 feet, 71 feet, and 79 feet. So it does increase as you go north. A little history on the site is that this was the original lot for our home. This was the original lot for the home to the north of us. There was another lot that spanned these two areas in the back that was at one time owned by another person. It was sold to these two people and split down the middle on the side as well as in the back. So the one lot that was here was divided and connected to these two houses. To get into a little bit of the proposed work that we're looking to do, we're really looking to do three different things. And that's renovate the interior of the home to fit what we're looking for, the Losies are looking for to live in there, to live to their method. We're looking to create a rear addition to the home that adds about 1,000 square feet to the existing square footage. The house right now is a 2,300 square foot home. We're adding 1,045 square feet to it. So it's going to be 3,375, I think, is the total square footage. So the basement currently houses the garage in this portion over here. The garage was added on in 1989, and as you can see, it was set back 2 feet on the south side to meet the setback requirements on that side. What we're planning to do is take that garage and make it into a family room, not extend any footprint whatsoever. We're trying to keep it within that area. The only thing that we're extending is putting in a little chimney on the first floor that projects 2 feet into the side yard setback on that location. We're going to be making a family room there, as well as a foyer that's entered off the back, as well as a kids area, workout room, storage area. The first floor plan, this area right now is a deck. We're planning on, again, this is right over the existing garage. We're planning on taking that first floor, extending over the garage, not going any further than what the existing garage is right now. Extend that area through that to the garage roof and create a family room, a kitchen, a laundry room, dining room, office. Fairly similar to the plan that we have now in this portion of the home, but this area over here that's an addition is a new area. On the second floor, again, this was the existing addition probably in the 1950s or so. Here you can see that line on our new plan, and we're adding on a master bedroom, a master bath, master closet, and as the house has 3 bedrooms right now, we're making, again, 3 bedrooms with a bath for each bedroom. In site plan, again, we're showing the existing house on either side of ours, our house in the center. We're really not, again, we're not extending any further past this existing footprint that we have. But because we are taking the garage out of the first floor, we are planning to put a 3-car garage off to the side. Our original plan was to have a 3-car garage in width. However, in doing that, we found that it took up so much of the width of this lot that the view to the back from the home, which the Losies really want to have so that they can monitor their children out there, really blocked that 3-car wide garage, really had a problem with that. So we decided to double load the one side, make it a tandem depth on the left-hand side. In doing that, it also created a smaller scale for the garage. It really made the house, or the garage, fit more in keeping with the house style that we have. Here are the plans and elevation of the garage. Again, the front elevation of the garage is only a 2-car garage. It really is not a large, imposing garage in any way. It is double deep on one side, as you can see here, but it is not an imposing structure in any ways. It's only 13 feet 7 in height. As far as the elevations are concerned, as I mentioned before, the front elevation, it has some character to it, but it really is not in keeping with the initial style of the home, the 4-square architecture. As you can see, the front porch is only over a portion of the house. The windows don't align. We would like to take some of that original elements and make it the way we think it should have been designed originally, which is to take that front porch and go fully across the house and align windows with the doors and windows down below. On the north elevation, you can see the existing structure. We've got that in dashed lines on the building down below. What we're trying to do is create an element here, this element with the gate, with the bay window, bay in the center below it. This is our addition, and we're trying to make some kind of design element behind that again lines up in a nice fashion. This 1989 addition was really a very 1989 addition. It had a lot of clear stories, windows, it had skylights, it had ribbon windows, vaulted ceilings. It had a lot of things that really weren't in keeping with the design style of the turn of the century. We're trying to keep that design style in our new plan by taking all the elements and running them through the whole site, the building. The rear elevation really shows mainly what the 1989 addition was. We're taking that whole addition off, so we're going to replace it with something that we hopefully is similar to the front elevation in the style and design that is meant to be. The south elevation is an elevation that we're going to be having a lot of discussions about, I think. And that is because there is an existing 4-square elevation here. Again, that 1-foot setback on the second floor. The addition of the 1989 area. What we're planning to do is keep that 4-square area in line. Still have that 1-foot setback in that area. Originally, we had a plan that had this all one elevation all the way across to try to maximize our square footage. However, the size and the scale and the one plane across the whole face was a little bit too stark. At the same time, staff recommended that we keep that 1-foot setback, and we agreed. We thought that was a good idea. At the same time, if we kept this whole thing one plane across the whole area, we would have to go for a variance for the portion of the addition over here, because that would be 2 feet again off the setback. And we really don't want to go for a variance if we don't have to, or if we do have to, we want to minimize that. We don't want to intrude on the neighbors. So we're going to be planning on having this just be down at the existing setback line with only our overhangs being extended into the setback. We have heard from 2 different neighbors, one to the north and to the south, both of which have many different objections to the plan. Having to do with bulk, having to do with scale, having to do with look, having to do with light, you name it, there's some objections to it. We feel that we've taken a situation that really was not a good design in the first place. The 1999 addition really did not have anything to do with the style of architecture that this home had. We've taken that design, we've knocked down that 89 addition that was not in keeping with the home. And we put in an addition that I think much more lends itself to the style of architecture that this house should have. At the same time, we have made concessions to our floor plan and to our elevations to try to address their concerns. We've pushed this wall back 2 feet. We've tried to address this to make this as least imposing to them as possible. As far as the north elevation, there really are no setback variances that we're looking for. Everything is per code on that elevation. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. We'll take a staff report if we have one. I bet we do.
Thank you, Chairman Peretz. Staff met with the petitioner and the homeowners when this project first was submitted for consideration by the Historic Preservation Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Given the scope of the project and the many different aspects of the project, we really encourage the petitioner to bring this petition before the Historic Preservation Commission prior to review by the Zoning Board of Appeals for input and direction on the massing, the footprint, the appropriateness overall of the design. Recognizing that there may be questions given the quick turnaround of time that from when the petitioner supplied staff with the information and staff provided the commission with information, we do have some communication from the homeowner that was presented to the commission this evening indicating the intent to meet the building scale requirements, to meet the setback requirements with respect to the wall on the south elevation. And I think the staff recommendation at this time is to just ask the commission to look at your standards for review with respect to massing, building scale, architectural integrity, demolition of the areas that are proposed for demolition, and really provide some comment and direction to the petitioner to allow for some modification and change prior to zoning board review of the project.
Okay.
I have listed in the staff report some guidelines with respect to questions that staff still has and the commission could ask for more information regarding. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
And Megan, so maybe you could just clarify for me, the intention would be to meet the setback requirements for everything except for the garage?
It's my understanding, and perhaps the petitioner could speak to this, that the owners are eliminating the need for a zoning variance for the detached garage by pulling it away from the property line 15 feet, including the overhang. And from listening to the petitioner this evening, the intent is to bring the wall of the addition to the 15-foot setback, but the overhang, the eave overhang, would still encroach.
You're talking about the garage, though?
For the addition to the house.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
But I would also...
Is the back wall of the extended garage over the setback line? Yes.
If I could address that. There's quite a few things going on with the garage location. If we were to follow the code as far as the garage location is concerned, at this location we need to be 15 feet from the side yard, from the property line.
Okay.
The clients and I have a little difference of opinion here, and I just want to tell you the differences here. The garage, as I've shown it here, is, like I said, it had to be 15 feet from the property line. But the original site was this site. You know, this was the original property. This was added on at a later date. The code in this area says that if you wanted to get to within 10 feet of that setback, or it's 10 feet of the property line on that side, you'd have to be in the last 25% of your lot. Well, 25% of this lot would be here. 25% of this lot would be here, of the overall lot. My feeling is that the intent of the code was that it would just be at the 25% of this lot, and when this was added on at a later date, that lot line, that 25% line, went back quite far, farther than it really should be in relation to the home. The garage would have to be located very, very far back to take advantage of that 10-foot distance from the north lot line.
Okay.
Now, the clients don't feel, they're not that concerned about that. If this is an area of contention, they're willing to have the garage pushed back to the location that it needs to be. However, I feel that it's doing them a disservice to do that. I feel that it really is the intent of the code to have it 25% of this lot.
Okay, I think I got that. significant, or let's maybe we should put that one on the side burner for a minute, because I think we'll want to talk more about the design ramifications of the garage, and then we can revisit whether, good luck to the zoning guys on that. And tell me again about bulk. The intention is to meet the requirement for bulk, and is it bulk being applied to the overall new lot, I would assume?
Correct.
Okay.
As the lot sits today as a single zoning lot, it encompasses the long and narrow lot that you see.
Got it.
With the conversion of the garage to living space, that lower level actually begins to count towards the building scale calculation.
Okay.
I think in this case, there may be merit in requesting additional information on where the grade falls on the existing house, because that really determines how much of the lower level is counted into the building scale.
Okay.
The petitioner to staff and in the letter to the commission has indicated the intent to be within that building scale requirements. However, I think once the petitioner hears from the commission this evening, anything that's brought back to the commission should be clearly identified as being in compliance.
Okay, and so is there a calculation on the table yet, or not really?
We have done a preliminary calculation that is included in your packets.
Oh, thank you. A lot of stuff here.
I know. And we came to the conclusion that it's approximately 260 square feet over.
If you included the portion of the basement that you believe might be included. Okay, fair enough.
So just so I understand, so the part of the basement that is visible counts towards their bulk. The part that is underground does not.
Well, let's put it differently. The staff has a way of calculating what portion of the basement counts based on what the average grade is around that portion. So they don't necessarily have all that information yet, and they need that information to know. So I don't think that in the calculation that they've just mentioned to us, can you give us a rough percentage? Is it half the basement just so we have a seat of the pants kind of understanding?
Sure. The way the ordinance is written, any area exposed more than 3.5 feet counts for lower level space.
Okay.
That is a good portion of the proposed lower level of this house.
Okay.
The other aspect of the building scale that is commented in the staff report is the identification of a bay window, which in the building scale ordinance is considered a design element. And so the way that certain areas are defined also provides some discrepancy in the calculations.
Could I add something to that, please?
Sure, please.
This is the bay window you're discussing, right, Megan? This area, the box bay? Okay, sorry. It's our intention that that is not included in bulk. We had our discussion with you, and we agree with you. We're going to try to keep that out of bulk and feel that that is part of the square footage of the house, not a design element. So the square footages that are in contention here as far as the bulk is concerned, we have to go through your numbers, see where the discrepancies are, and try to address that. But it is, again, our intention to stay within the bulk.
To comply. Okay, thank you. Good. I'm sure there's a lot of questions on this, so I'm trying to manage them in a way that we might answer some of them all at once. So we're going to go through this. We're going to have a chance to ask questions of the staff and the petitioner. We're going to ask for public comment, and then we're going to deliberate. We're going to try to stick to that if we can tonight, unless we ask questions later. Because we are going late and we're trying to get through it. So with that said, questions for the staff or the petitioner on this before we get to public comments?
Well, I have a question for the staff.
Okay.
On the demo. Okay, if you're considering this essentially a demo, it's because it's 75% of the house will be demoed. Does it meet the demo criteria?
Right. Mr. Eniak is reminding me that there is a discrepancy with respect to the amount of demolition. When we initially met with the petitioner, it was identified that approximately 75% of the structure was to be removed. Recently, we've received correspondence from the owner reducing that to about 35%. So I think that's something that we need clarification on. I think the commission can provide direction on the appropriateness of the demolition that they're showing on their elevations and their floor plan. and whether or not the demolition criteria, which are placed at your places this evening, are in fact met.
Yeah, because that would be a really important determinant on how we proceed with
Okay.
this.
So I think, based on the comments from the petitioner, we have to kind of assume that this would not be characterized as a demolition, this would not be characterized as overbulk. Otherwise, we would have to be back to the drawing board in terms of our comments on that. So why don't we proceed on that basis and hope that holds up.
Okay.
Any other questions before we go to public testimony? Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know, there's a lot going on here. So you're not going to be over bulk is your target.
Right.
Are you not going to be over any setbacks with regard to the house?
The only setbacks, well, there's two things that are going on here. The front elevation, we said that front porch is going to be full width of the home. As we mentioned before, the south 2 feet of the home is over the south setback line by 2 feet. We'd like to still carry that front porch across the whole front of the house.
Because you want it to be balanced.
Exactly.
So this is
So
over-
what if you
so
just
that's
made
over
it,
2 feet.
what if you made it 2 feet on each side and it was balanced?
We could do that. That would be a good option.
So it's possible to get ourselves out of any setbacks.
I'm wondering about the windows there, just to make sure that there's no conflict with the existing window to the left-hand side of the elevation.
And I'm not telling you to do this, I'm just trying to kind of get some places where there's, you know, no compromising, no,
Just trying to identify the issues.
yeah. You're not even symmetrical in your dining room, so I don't know what the issue would be if you had to move it a little anyway, but it doesn't look like it, I don't know. So it's possible you might be able to do that, because right now the house has a small porch, it's half the width of the house, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And, okay. And as far as the back, do you have your site plans?
Sure.
Is this okay?
I think it's good, and by the way, you know, you're pointing out some interesting areas where perhaps he can't give up 2 feet, but he could give up 18 inches, and a 6-inch variance on that might
Well,
be easier than a 2 foot. I'm just, you know, I think
yeah.
it's interesting to go through what the critical issues are.
And you know, and the reason I'm bringing it up is I'm not trying to be trying to pick on you guys or the homeowners, because I'm really glad you guys decided to move to Lake Forest, and we try to help everybody out here, so, you know, please don't think we're here to beat you up, we're not. One thing I noticed when I was at the site and I walked around the whole house, it's actually rather dramatic. In some cases, the back goes all over, it's up and down, it's not your typical lot for this street.
Yes.
Even the way the driveway comes in has been redone to be a little bit less than a gunshot type thing. But that neighbor to the south, their porch comes right out to the edge, so everyone's gonna be almost able to reach over and hand the sugar across. So if you're over your setback, it might, you know, that might become something of a benefit for everybody. Now, the current footprint of the building is over the setback as we travel to the back of the lot, right?
That's true.
And then there's a step in the current garage. And I know I have these drawings too, there's just so many of them, I'm trying to get the, is that in the same place as your proposed step in at that family room?
Yes, it is. We're planning to keep
This one here.
the garage just as is. And there is a cantilever right now going on the second floor. I don't know if you've noticed that when you walk around the back. A portion of the rear elevation, the south elevation, will still remain cantilevered. And I'll show you where that portion is.
Is that existing on top? Yes.
Yes, this is the existing.
Are both of these at the same scale?
Yes, they are at the same scale.
Okay.
You can see a cantilever happening here. This portion is the cantilevered portion of the first floor over the existing garage foundation wall.
Now, that was done to address the setback issue when that addition was put on?
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Again, this was the original portion. The garage was pushed back to meet the setback, but the first floor addition cantilevers over and does not meet the setback.
Okay,
So-
where, that step back line there, right there, is that the step back in your proposed plan? If you go down to the next drawing, is that the step back there?
Yeah, now, just to show you one thing, there's a line, this line right here should not be there. From there to there, this area right here is cantilevered as is this. So this line right here from that to that should not be exposed. This is one surface running through to this location.
Yeah, well, you did a really good job of losing me there.
That's
Go back up to the existing.
Sure.
That line, that's there right now.
Yep.
And it steps back.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go down there. You stay up there. Now that line, that goes back to the garage wall.
It does.
Okay, now when I look at your proposed first floor plan,
Mm-hmm.
there's a step back that goes to that wall where the fireplace is. Is that at that same place that you just had your finger on?
Let me find it and try to answer your question.
Do you guys know what I'm trying to get at there? I'm trying to figure out if this, if we're maintaining that step back. And,
If this lines up with that step back.
okay, and the
No.
reason that it's flush is because underneath it goes in.
Yeah, the basement step back
He doesn't show that.
that you're talking about actually extends back to about this point.
Great.
You know, the basement foundation comes back to here.
So there's a cantilever
Oh,
that would still be
exactly.
in the, there's a
Okay.
cantilever that would still be in the,
All right, so your step back in your proposed plan is going further to the back of the house than that current step back is.
I want to make sure I
for the
answer that
walls,
correctly.
but not for the
Okay, now I got a
foundation.
question for staff. Is it, you have a zoning ordinance that says there's a setback, and you put your first floor wall there. Now, you can't extend over that with cantilevers without violating the setback, so that's another violation.
Well, I want to make it
Is
clear
that,
that that's,
but basically, that's in violation if it's cantilevered, right?
but it's an
existing.
existing violation. This is not something we're adding. This is the same first floor cantilever that we're keeping down here.
He's actually shortened the first
Yeah,
floor canopy.
Exactly, by about 1.5 feet.
Okay, so it's further out, it's out here?
It's out there and he shortened it
Okay,
back.
okay, that's what I was trying to get you to
That's
say to me.
Sorry.
Okay, all right. All right, so now the fireplace, that encroaches in the setback, right?
Right, and that's another issue that we could very easily say, let's push that fireplace into the house and eliminate any kind of side yard encroachment there.
Right.
And then on the north side, we're okay with setbacks?
Yes.
What was the logic in cantilevering that thing you called a two-story bay? That's kind of a, I don't know exactly what we should call that, but what was the reason for that?
There is no cantilever there. That's actually
Well,
recessed.
that hangs out over the garage, doesn't it?
No, the garage actually, the sides beyond that box bay recess over the garage. This is flush with the garage surface down below.
Oh, so the garage wall is flush all the way with this whole wall.
Well, then, explain why that, why did you do that?
To try to give some kind of design element to the rear elevation of the, or the side elevation of the home. To try to just continue this elevation, this plane all the way through, it just was too much, too boxy, too ugly in my opinion.
Well, I'm still asking questions, but we'll probably want to talk about whether that's really that good of a move, but, you know, in an effort to kind of clean up all these setbacks and protrusions, because that's really not necessarily indicative of four-square massing, how would you feel about simplifying some of these undulations to create one big mass? You kind of have it on the north side, and then small, I mean, are you open to that, or are you
Absolutely.
married to this?
We're open to anything that
I-
you guys
that's-
suggest.
That's,
Look,
I think, my
I'm-
questions
yeah,
for now.
okay,
That's
all
all.
right. Thanks. Any other questions? Can I ask Guy a question?
Sure.
I'll ask it later. All right, now is the portion of the meeting where we have an opportunity for public testimony, if there is any. So I would invite that. If anyone here has anything to say, please come on up and tell us your name and where you live, and happy to hear your comments.
My name is John Fitzpatrick. I live at 436 Illinois Road, right next door to the north of the 440 residence. The other day, I had an opportunity to meet the new neighbors, and I want you to know that we welcome them. We have a difference of opinion, I gather. Briefly, it's our feeling that there's putting 10 pounds into a 5-pound sack. It's just too big, it's too massive. I question also whether it fits in with the historic section of the Lake Forest that we're in. So, in summation, I think it's too much and not as appropriate as what I might like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public testimony? All right, we have an opportunity to deliberate, so I'm interested in your deliberations, and we can continue to ask questions if we have any.
Well, you know, Kathy, I have a question for you regarding the letter we received from the neighbor. Let's see, the Armstrongs. And they were just talking about the process that happened with this house back in 2004, which wasn't that long ago, where they weren't allowed to add they came before the board, and it was the same double massing, and they were not allowed to go forward with that petition. Can you give us some insight on, I'm assuming it came before HBC.
Are you talking about the same house?
Yeah,
Another house
yeah,
on the street?
we received a letter from a neighbor.
But I think that was referring to a house a couple doors down. Those were minutes attached.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't the same house.
No, and I believe that, staff, am I correct?
444.
The reason, Susie, I had the same initial impression that that was referring to this house.
Same house.
But it's actually on the other side of the person that wrote that letter.
But same issue, right?
Well, everything's always unique to itself, so I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, I'm just wondering about, maybe I should ask you, how do you respond to the neighbor's concern about your you're blocking their light and their air, and these lots are small, 50 feet wide. I live in a 4-square myself with a 50-foot wide width on my house, so I understand the challenges faced with that. And it was a challenge for us when we were designing that, not to impact our neighbors in a negative way. So how do you respond to their clear, objection to?
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, we are doing what we can to try to appease them. We're pushing our house back on that portion to try to get back to the setback line. We don't want to go any further than we have to. In doing that, there were some hardships.
Could you put up the site plan with the trio on there, just while we're
Sure.
talking, just so we can kind of use it as a reference? Thanks.
Sure.
Pardon me.
Sorry, that's okay. In doing so, we did have some hardships as far as plan were concerned. We had to rework the plan in quite a few ways, and in doing so, I know this isn't a concern of yours, but it did affect the master bedroom quite a bit and the master bathroom, and trying to get that to lay out correctly. At the same time, it does affect another bedroom down the way, and we have to curb our hall to make everything work out. Nonetheless, we are doing what we can to do that. At the same time, we're willing to take that chimney, as we talked about, and slide it into the home to try to eliminate any kind of setback issue as far as the home is concerned in the area. We have a 16-inch overhang on our home. To try to make that 16-inch work as well will really come into some major effects into the home as far as the plan is concerned. Try to get another 16 inches out of there will really make a bedroom that is probably about 12 and a half feet wide, which is really not sufficient for a king-size bed and any kind of furniture and walkway around it. So we really, to try to get that 16-inch overhang inside that setback line is really going to be a tough thing to do. But as far as the massing, we're not getting any taller than the house that is right now. We're not, we're doing everything we can to push this house to the north in that area to try to eliminate any kind of conflict to the south. Well, again, as I said, the north is not really an issue as far as the setbacks and the distances to the lot line.
I guess my concern is just that there's a certain rhythm to these. I mean, there's clearly two different types of houses here, and the three that you have together, and a certain type of house with the 4-square, more, casual in appearance, and there's a certain rhythm to the way they've been developed.
Absolutely.
And it's just a thought of mine. Maybe I don't know. It just seems really imposing on me. It seems really massive to me. If I was a neighbor and I was concerned about it, I just think it really would infringe on my home. So I guess I really have a concern with the massiveness of the appearance of the house.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
But one thought that occurred to me is, when these houses were first built, the turn of the century, you had smaller lots, and maybe that's how you go about designing it in terms of bulk. Is look at the original lot as opposed to the whole lot. Maybe that'll guide you on your proportion of the building to keep it more in scale with what's existing in that neighborhood for those smaller homes. I don't know, I guess I'm just talking off the top of my head, but it just seems so imposing on me, and I'm just wondering how you really, I don't know if you really answered my question on how you're addressing the neighbors, the impact on the neighbors, the negative impact.
Could you put that down and put that site plan up again?
Sure.
And I just want to address something, I know that the owner's coming up here, but I want to ask a question or two before.
Sure,
you
please
speak.
do, Guy.
Now, indeed, we got a letter and the person is concerned about that house and they're concerned about the one on the other side of them at the time. Now, these lots are the larger size, is that
That's right.
correct? I'm asking staff also?
Yes.
They've been consolidated with that T-shaped lot, and they all go back to the same border, and that's the size of the properties. Now, the person that wrote that letter to us, they don't appear to be maxed out to their bulk. I would assume they probably aren't. So they would have, whatever, maybe not this owner, but another owner of that property would have the ability to build that out within their rights to whatever the maximum allowable square footage would be, right?
That's right.
And if they're under bulk with their next proposal iteration, I'm just trying to establish, because someone writes a letter and says they don't want this building to be too much bigger, as long as they're not violating any ordinances or violating any square footage allowables, they're asking us to take away some of that property owner's property rights.
That's right.
Right? Okay, so, and Susie, I'm trying to be sensitive to the owner too, but, I mean, are they gonna sign a pact that forever that property is not gonna be added onto either? And you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to establish.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's another way to design it so it doesn't look so massive.
Well, I'm concerned about a lot of the elevational treatment and massing myself, so maybe.
Because I think there is a way. I know you probably could design something.
I'm not gonna.
Not that I'm saying you should.
Say that it can be even fixed, but I'm just saying that we're establishing the fact that if they're under bulk and they're not over any setbacks, that.
Hey Kathy, can I ask you a question? How much deliberation is typically on this board done around bulk and setbacks versus the zoning board? And what kind of input are they looking for us to give them? Because, you know, there's a correlation between bulk and setback and in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and things, but I think if we all assume that for this commission that the setback and the bulk would be conforming, we're kind of looking at a different design, and we don't really have anything to react to say this is in keeping with the character of this neighborhood. I mean, that's where I'm at. So, I'm just trying to get my head around how we can give them feedback and help this process along.
I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
But I think Guy's got some ideas. I have some ideas too, but I think it's important for us to establish where the critical areas are. So yes, I'm not really too dialed up about whether it's over bulk or under bulk at the moment, but it's nice to know on a relative basis whether, we think it's in the vocabulary of this solution to be in bulk. I'm not so sure that it's not 200 square feet. They might be able to find a way to do that in the same vocabulary. We want to get to that vocabulary, I think. So maybe you were getting there, but if not, maybe I'll just jump in. There's a couple things in this house that leap out at me. The first is that the original 4-square architecture is long gone. Well, I'm not concerned about preserving that. I'm not concerned about tipping my hat to it. It's just, this isn't what we're building. That was a little house, this is a big house. So we have to think about this in terms of a solution that works for a big house. I like the idea of doing something on the front porch to give this a more gracious front porch, because if I lived there, I like a gracious front porch. I think I was on the right track with trying to find a way to maybe squeeze that down on the front. I don't think it has to come all the way to the property line on both sides. Matter of fact, it might help to have some relief in the architecture from the front porch to the house, because it just lets the mass start feeling smaller, or differentiating the mass as you go back, okay? I'm working from both directions. So now I talked about the front porch, now I gotta go all the way back to the garage. And what you've done by extending the back of the garage is made it look nice from the driveway, but made it look worse from the neighbor's yard. Because now you got a 40-foot garage wall that presents itself to the neighbor's yard. So I'm concerned with that 40-foot wall. I want to know, how does that look if I'm in the neighbor's yard? Why do I want to look at a 40-foot garage wall? Maybe it's okay, maybe it's not okay. Maybe you could treat it architecturally, but I'm at least concerned with it. I'm trying to understand whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. Right, so there it is, and you know, that's in the context of that drawing, doesn't look so bad. In the context of my backyard, if you stuck a 40-foot wall in my backyard, I would notice it. So I'm just concerned with that, so that's the two. So let's take that drawing back down and go back to that site plan again. There's quite a bit of room, there's quite a bit of relief to the north, actually, more relief to the north, actually, than to the south. And I like Guy's comment about how the north house could someday be a larger house, might be, happens. The house to the south could also be a little bit larger, but it's constrained to the narrower lot line, and so the imposition on that house, I'm actually more concerned with that in some ways than to the house to the north. And it's got a different spatial relationship to it. So a real long, flat wall presenting itself to that house to the south concerns me. To the north, I see a little bit longer view, and so I think there's an opportunity to maybe do something with the massing to break it up. And Guy was talking about making that a more regular plane. I think he was thinking of that solution in terms of trying to eliminate quirky things in the building that were just kind of designed to give relief. I'd actually like to see some real relief. I'd like to see part of the thing not be 2 stories or something, so that I think of these things in terms of overall mass. And so how do I give some definition to one part of the house, reduce that mass as I move along, so that there's either, you know, some relief, some rhythm, whatever. I just try not to make it look like one long, you know, and a little 2 feet here and there doesn't really do it for me. I mean, you know, I'm looking for some real change in bulk as you move. And I would really encourage you to study that at the macro level in terms of, you know, some real block massing, you know, and look at that and say, what do I want to really see as I walk around the house? It's a big lot. It can stand a pretty good sized house, you know. But the question is what does that house look like, and is there some relief as you walk around the house from a really one long wall presenting itself to one neighbor or the other? And so I'd be concerned about that. You know, the style in terms of, you know, taking the look of the front of the house and bringing that around, and, you know, I think you're in a vocabulary that all works, and I don't see any real challenges to making that work. I'm kind of running out of steam. It's been a long night. Anybody else got any, like, you know, deliberation comments, like little word to the wise for these guys? I mean, I think, you know, I mean, you get the general sense of it. It's less probably about whether it's over bulk or whether it's over the lot line, in terms of whether it's a kind of refined, holistic solution that you would say, oh, looks like that house was built all at one time. Love it when that happens, you know. Anytime there's like these appendages off these houses that, oh, I couldn't fit the garage in over here, so I just stuck another one on the end of it, that makes me a little concerned, makes me nervous of how that looks for, and whether it's further back or further forward, you know, I think that's all part of the overall solution. Maybe there's a compromise that's a little bit further back, but you go ahead and make it wider so it's really a functional garage. I mean, unless you're storing a 50 Chevy back there, it's hard to get to that car, so.
Could I address some of those?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, as far as the garage is concerned, I did have several discussions with the clients as far as the size and scale and number of bays.
Yeah.
And we are willing to go to 2.5 garage if that would make any benefit to this. We take off that last bay and just increase it by about 5 feet.
I mean, I think it helps the neighbor to the north's view to the yard, and probably makes it easier to use the garage. And like I say, if all it is for bikes and all this stuff that doesn't fit in my garage.
The other thing, as far as the massing and the you know, pushing this and extending out to the rear possibly, in doing that, we'd be going past the existing footprint. Not that that's an issue as far as bulk or setbacks or anything like that. However, it is a large concern for the clients as far as cost. To try to push out and do new foundations, they do have a limited budget. The budget is met at this point. To try to increase the floor plan in any one direction as far as foundation is concerned would probably push it beyond what the budget is now, and it'd be a hardship to them.
Yeah. Well, you know, whether that costs more or not, it wouldn't be my intention necessarily to expand the footprint so much as it would be to look for a cohesive solution that works together and doesn't end up showing up as a box, you know. So I don't know how to respond to that other than, you know, there's a lot of square footage in this solution between the basement, the first floor, and the second floor, and maybe there's a creative way to get that all to work in either in less area, or maybe there's, you know, I don't, you know, I don't have the solution. I just know what, as I look at the proposal, it feels very large, rectangular, box-like solution to me, and I'm encouraging you to try to soften that massing.
And the
I think
reason-
you'll be happier with it too, if, in the end, you know, part of our problem that we struggle with all the time, and we appreciate all of the effort that goes into making all these exhibits. There's certainly a lot of drafting here. But the presentation in 2 dimensions on paper is really hard to react to, particularly to the untrained, you know, eye. And so as you're thinking about what house you want to live in, even a cheap cardboard model, do it yourself. You don't have to pay him. It helps you understand what it's going to look like, because there's a lot going on here. You know, I mean, there's the grades going down. This is really a tall elevation here. By the time you add the basement, the first floor, the second floor, and get to the, I mean, that's a very imposing. And so I'd love to see some relief to that, whether it's part of it doesn't go, you know, maybe there's a break before it goes to, this is really 3 stories of facade here. And so I think if you could solve the back part of that house, the 2 sides will kind of come together and solve themselves. But don't, it's an injustice to yourself to present the rear elevation as though this didn't exist. You know, you're going to see that. So you should draw it.
I'm sorry,
you know,
didn't follow that.
well, you've got this, you know, when you look at the rear elevation, if you don't draw the view that sees this, you know, the 2-dimensional view doesn't really show you what's going on there.
Well, the 2-dimensional view, there is a raised area of the ground right beyond the house, as it shows on that elevation.
Yeah.
So really looking from the rear elevation, you're not going to see any of the basement level other than what you see there, which is just the exposed windows above grade.
But the north side neighbor sees the whole thing, right, as a 3-story elevation.
Yeah, they do, just as it's shown there.
Yeah.
Is this a candidate for a subcommittee?
I mean, I think that I don't see any, I mean, I don't think the architect doesn't get what we're telling him, you know, so usually when we get to a subcommittee, it's a process where we think they're, well, I don't know, you could tell me if you think you need more help on a subcommittee, but we don't like to sit in a room and try to design the house for you. We'd much rather have you take our comments, try to understand what, you know, what's driving them. Think about it, talk to your client, study it, and come back with some, you know, more refined solution or something that responds better to that. And I don't mean to call this an unrefined solution. I'm sure you guys have been working on it all summer. But, you know, it's just a different set of eyes is all it is. And so we're trying to give you the benefit of a different set of eyes. If you thought that a subcommittee would be helpful, we could entertain that. But I think what you're going to do is you're going to go a little bit back to the drawing board on this, and hopefully you'll come back with something that just wows us, and, you know, and everybody loves it and we're all good. But maybe if not, maybe that would be a candidate for a subcommittee, because maybe it would be something that would need some further, you know, some further insight from the committee on. But I'm not sure we're there yet in terms of that. What do you guys think? I mean, I agree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Could I address timing just real quickly?
Yeah.
We first came up with the design, we first actually met the client and came up with the design just prior to the submittal for the, I think it was the July meeting.
Right.
By the time we found out the deadline of the July meeting, we couldn't make that agenda, so we tried to make August, but August, we didn't realize there was an earlier August meeting, and we knew the end of August was canceled, so we got into the September submittal date, or actually just a September date. So it's been 3 or so months that we've been waiting for an appearance. The clients have been living in a rental home that really is not a sufficient size for their family. We're looking for some kind of expedition to this, or trying to expedite this in any way that we can. We were originally planned to be on the 28th or the 27th meeting, but we were pushed forward to try to get this in place so we get the variance at that time.
Yeah.
We're wondering if there's any chance that we could appear before you again on the 28th or the 27th of this month.
I mean, as far as that goes, all I can really do is kind of defer you to staff, but let me just comment on that a little bit. Haven't had an August meeting probably in 4 years, maybe longer. this month will be, this collective committee will be in 3 separate meetings. One that's a Parks Committee meeting. So we're doing our best to accommodate the petitions that come forward for us. So we met in August. We're going to meet in 3 times in September. It's interesting that things have gotten a lot more busy in the last, which is great. I can't quite understand it because it doesn't seem like it's translating to a lot more, well, whatever, I'll leave that alone. But it's really, you got to work that out with these folks. What I would tell you though is that working all night till, the submittal deadline, which probably is, not very far away, and then showing up with another half-baked plan probably is not to your advantage. So I don't know, when our meeting is in October. Do you have an October date?
Fourth Wednesday in October, we believe it's the 26th.
So that's another 6 weeks away. Yeah. Kathy, I mean, can you tell me?
It would be tough to turn something around. We do have a full agenda for your next meeting. We do need to get notices out for the next meeting. And I think, as you said, to really take the commission's comments, and we do need some clarification with respect. I know it's your intent to meet the building scale ordinance. That takes work, that takes time. I think we did try and move this forward because we felt like getting your comments was very important. But your packet for your next meeting will go out next week.
Yeah.
So, and normally our deadline's 6 weeks ahead, so we've tried to be flexible. And I don't think it helps anyone to bring you something that really isn't thought out. As
Right.
This proposal reads right now, it does still require variance not only for the front porch, but it appears to still need a variance for the south side, where it gets taller in some areas. If the eave overhangs, that would require a variance, and zoning setback variances are very difficult to get. There has to be a demonstrated hardship, and if these changes are being made, I think the zoning board will have a tough time, and that's not your issue, but I think we want to have time to work through the project and really try and bring you back something that
Right.
we can support and is ready to move forward.
I agree with that. The other thing about the subcommittee process, and I think it's worth just a quick comment because we had an unsuccessful subcommittee in my mind earlier this month. That process works really well when the commissioners have a collective direction, when we all kind of know, we've all kind of talked about it in a meeting and we all know what we want and we all understand what the other commissioners, and we're all kind of on the same plane, but we're trying to get the petitioner kind of to understand our point of view, or at least understand why we're reacting the way we are. Here we've got a plan that we've got some general comments from individual commissioners, but we don't really have something that we can, we don't want to speak for the commission in a subcommittee. We want to have these meetings so that everybody can see, everybody can react, everybody can hear the rationale why one thing is supported by Guy and another thing supported by Fred, and then we can make a decision. And usually, we don't find ourselves at odds in that process. We usually, are talking to each other and learning as we go and getting to a solution that we all like. So, I wish I could make it a faster process. I think that, the best thing for you would be to work with staff, try to get staff to be drinking the Kool-Aid, so that they really support it, because you'll need them, both in terms of, the way that they help you characterize this for ZBA and for, they understand the sticking points, they understand what stuff is, works well to resolve, tenuous situations and what doesn't, and they can at least give you some guidance with that. So, I mean, the process of showing them some stuff, having you go back to the drawing board on some other stuff and coming back to them saves you time at the end, I think, if you let that work through. So, is there anything, please, I'd love to hear from the homeowner on this. We don't get to do that often enough, and we're almost, it's like midnight somewhere, but go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, first of all, thank you for the welcome to Lake Forest. We did look at multiple towns in the area and absolutely fell in love with Lake Forest. So appreciate what you're trying to do in maintaining the character of the town. I really do. It's what drew us here. When we walked and looked at many, many homes, when we found this home, there were a set of plans on the countertop from the owner who was selling the house, and it was almost identical to what we're doing. So that's what really got us excited about this particular home. When we walked to the backyard and saw the size of the yard, we realized, at least thought, that we weren't going to have the challenges with bulk to add to the property. And so that's what really drove us to that house. And we met with 3 different contractors who all conveyed, based on the size and scope of the lot, that we wouldn't have issues with bulk. So when we became more familiar with the process and moved here in early July and learned more about the Historical Society, and even though we had found that the home was not actually deemed as a historical home, it was very enlightening for us to know that we still had to go before this group because it wasn't a historical house. So we've worked with Megan and Kathy, and we've tried to be as sensitive to the issues of the historical nature of the area as possible, without totally giving up what we bought that house for. I'm sure you guys, you may have children. I have a teenage daughter and a soon-to-be teenage son, so there are some concessions about the type of house that's going to be livable for the family, if you could. When we started drawing the plans and met the neighbors, it was the first that we learned that there was also a potential for concerns of the neighbors, even if you were in compliance of all areas of the home. We did work with Kathy and Megan to make shifts and adjustments on the home. We've tried to, in the email tonight, bring attention to the fact that we are amicable to making changes to the garage. Although with a teenage daughter, I would have loved the 3rd car garage, but we'll deal with that to go to 2.5. The point I'm trying to make is that there's no way, as a new homeowner coming to Lake Forest, seeing the size of the house, seeing the size of the lot, that we would have had any awareness of some of these challenges we were going to be encountering. And it's regrettable because we probably wouldn't have bought this particular house. It would not be here tonight had we known these things. So that's the challenge that we're trying to work through, because now we do own the house and we're trying to make it livable to the family as quickly as possible. My incredible disappointment is the fact that we've done everything we can that on reason, trying to prepare for tonight. I really didn't feel like we were half-baked. I felt like we'd spent a lot of time trying to prepare and meet the expectations. So you mentioned a steering committee, and while that may not be necessary, as a new homeowner in this area, I'm spending so much more money on this house than was ever anticipated that I thought would be necessary. And if there's a potential for us to get additional guidance beyond Kathy and Megan, who they do their best, but would love to get more clarity as to what it is you're looking for, because I heard a lot of opinions, but if we were to leave here tonight, I'm not sure I really understand what you'd be looking for. And so I do ask for additional assistance, because I would like to move this forward in an economical manner. And please know that we've always had wonderful relationships with our neighbors. It's incredibly disappointing. I really thought in coming in here and removing the 80s portion of the house and trying to bring it back to the historical character and investing so much money, they would be thrilled with the impact we were having on property value. So we'll definitely continue to try to work through that.
Okay, well, thank you.
I have one comment.
Sure,
I think
please.
that might help with the massing. On the north, east, and south elevations, I think that if you give more careful consideration to the window sizes and style and type, that would help so much. And I know that the interiors are dictating these windows, namely in the family room. I know you have bookcases next to the fireplace, therefore you have those short square windows. But if you could really look at the exterior a little more closely, maybe pull those windows down to match the front long, thin, elegant windows. Even on the second floor, those short square windows. I think even on every elevation, if you could really just look at your choice of window, I think that would really, this house has the potential to be really charming. And I think these windows, are just kind of plopped in and they're kind of there.
I think in terms of kind of like big picture to little picture process for you, the bulk, understanding the bulk calculation is a key, and the reason why I'm bringing that up, even though it's really a ZBA point, is I think it's difficult to impose a very large house on a close neighbor. It's hard in our bulk ordinance to do that without a pretty strong rationale to do that. We see variation in the bulk ordinance all the time when there's a very large lot and there's so much room around it anyway that even though they're over bulk, it's not an imposition on a neighbor. And usually that's the first thing that comes to our mind when we're talking about over bulk is what's the impact to the neighbor. Second is what's the impact on the architecture and in the neighborhood. So here, understanding that first and foremost is very, very important. If you are over bulk and you have an imposing second floor or third floor in the case of the north neighbor, I know it's only the second floor, but it feels like the third floor, imposing edifice on that neighbor, that's very difficult for us to react positively to. And so I would say that's the first thing to understand. And then if you need to reduce the bulk in areas of the house that reduce the imposition or the expanse of the house to those neighbors. That's the place to do it. Don't like find the way to, because there's all kinds of other ways to lower the roof profile or do things like this that start to impose themselves on the architecture. I'd much rather see you do that on the bulk of the real house, in terms of how it presents itself to the neighbors. So that would be a starting point for me. If you got to a point in your process before a next meeting where you felt like it was you've been beating your head against the rock with staff and you need some additional help, I would say to them, ask us. If you need us to organize a subcommittee, we don't need a meeting like this to do that. We can respond to a staff request for that if they think if they agree that would be a helpful thing, and we're more than happy to do that. But I think that what we need to, in order to do that, is some kind of baseline to understand what we're reacting to in terms of setback bulk, and then, it's a little bit of a blind shot to send, because we only do 2 people, the subcommittee has to be 2 commissioners. We send them into the room to try to understand, how the rest of us will react, and it's just, it becomes only as good as their best day in that process. So staff can help us. They can understand when they're getting to a point where the subcommittee might be beneficial, and we're happy to do it if we think, and if you get to the point where you think you're just not making progress with Megan and Kathy, and you want to do that, then I would ask them to do that, and I think we could consider that. So I think that's, our advice for you, unless any of the other commissioners, or unless you have any other specific comments, I wouldn't be feel beat up. Because I would feel encouraged. We like that you're making an investment. We welcome you to the neighborhood. I think it can be a great house, and don't be too quick to accept, it can only be a 2.5 car garage. Work through the issues, understand what makes it better, what makes it worse, and challenge the staff a little bit on those kinds of conclusions. And maybe a 3-car garage that's oriented sideways is better than it. I don't know. I have no idea what it is, but we've seen lots and lots of examples over the past years of we send someone away with some concerns on their plan. They come back with a really creative solution that's way better than we would have ever expected to see, and we love that when that happens. And so you've got a talented architect. I'm sure you guys can react positively too. So I would be encouraged. It's just, I know it's a pain, for sure. We love being here ourselves.
Can I just get clarity in terms of we're trying to keep the family unit together in this rent house is not great right now. So, and we're going to be end of October before we even are in front of you guys again, which means, do we have to wait before we go to zoning? Will we still be able to go to zoning in September, or do we have to have the approval of this at the end of October before we go to zoning? Because that's going to put us out a whole nother month.
I think that Kathy can answer that question. I don't know that there's that you have to do one before the other, but I think you have to know the solution before you go to zoning, right? So that's I think the challenge there.
Both the Historic Preservation Commission and Zoning Board meet the 4th. One meets the 4th Monday of the month, the other meets the 4th Wednesday. My guess is that by the end of September, we might not have the solution worked through. And for the Zoning Board, they need the real specifics. Is it a 6-inch encroachment, or is it a 2-foot encroachment? And is it this additional volume or that additional volume? So we could certainly do those both the same week in October. And if by some chance, well, in September, we would have missed already the time to do the published legal notice, which we have to do for the Zoning Board, which is different from the commission. So we could not get this to the September meeting at this point.
So it's possible that you might be able to get them both at the end of October in the same week if the solution is reliable enough for you to submit to zoning on a kind of a contingent basis, I guess, right? Not sure it would be contingent even. It would be, you would be asking for one thing, hoping to get the other.
Ms. O'Neill just reminded me that we actually did do legal notice, so this was published in the paper for the September zoning board meeting. If there was a solid solution, and if we, again, we would have to do notice this week.
Yeah.
To the neighbors. So we could certainly do both meetings in October the same week.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll let you follow up with staff on that and see if there's any way that that could happen differently, but it sounds like for that to work, you wouldn't want to go to them twice. So you'd have to really know what you're doing by the end of the week, which seems to be a tall order.
Well, and probably the best solution with respect to zoning issues is, I think there's very good logic, and I think there's precedent from the zoning board in approving the front yard variance for the porch, because many homes in that neighborhood have porches. I think the best solution is to create a plan that does not require a side yard variance, because I think the zoning board is going to have a very hard time finding a hardship when the home is getting much larger.
So, Kathy, in that case, would you encourage the petitioner to go ahead and process the porch variance now, since they've given notice, with the understanding that there's no other zoning requirements if they can avoid them, but that they still have to go through our process for the rest of the house?
I think that we need to understand, it sounds like there were some comments on the porch, and
okay.
I think you don't want to keep.
Fair enough.
Could I address that one
Confusing
second? I agree with the porch. We could actually pull it in 2 feet and have no variances whatsoever on the porch. The garage, we could redesign and relocate and have no variances whatsoever. The sticking point that I see is that south portion of the house, right over here, in that the foundation is at the setback line. I'm sorry, the foundation's at the setback line, so the eave would be projecting into the setback line regardless of what we do, unless we have no eave whatsoever. So we're not going to move this foundation.
Is the eave allowed? I thought the eave was allowed to, no?
Front and back only.
Yeah. Is that new?
No, in the side yards, the eave must meet the side yard setback.
I see.
And again, it's looking at light and air to neighboring property owners. And
so even on the existing wall, they would need a variance for that?
for the eve, yes.
For the eve.
And I think the zoning board needs to see a very detailed plan.
I
I'm not
understand.
saying they
Makes
couldn't
sense.
approve it, but
Okay.
they need the entire plan. They need to know the solution.
Okay.
So I think there's no doubt that we'd be going to the variance committee based on the fact that we'd have to have some kind of eve going on the existing foundation wall, even if we got rid of the garage and got rid of the front
Right.
yard porch area.
Sounds right. And then that sounds like that would be at the end of October, because you would want to go to them without a solution baked with us. Yeah. All right. I think that's what we got for you.
Thank you.
So, thank you. So we'll continue that petition, and I don't think I need a motion to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I need a motion for that? Okay, well, I'll ask for a motion to continue that.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Atkinson.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Swenson. I heard that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all opposed, and I didn't hear any of those, so good luck with that. We look forward to seeing that again. Now is the opportunity for the public to address the Historic Preservation Committee on any non-agenda items. If you have any, we'd be happy to hear about those. And I'd just like to ask if there's any other additional information from staff.
As you mentioned, you will have a joint meeting with the Park and Rec Board to hear an informational presentation on Forest Park. That meeting is Wednesday, September 21st. I do want to announce to the community that Woodlands Academy will be having a community meeting on Tuesday, September 20th at 7 p.m. This meeting will be at Woodlands Academy on their campus. and they will make a presentation talking about the gift that they may be receiving of Barrett campus to expand their campus. So the community is invited to that. That's at 7 p.m. The Forest Park meeting, which is the next evening, is at 6:30 p.m. and that is right here, and that meeting will be televised.
All right, thank you very much.
And we're not taking any action at that meeting, that's informational?
It is informational. You will hear a report from the Forest Park Executive Board. Over the past year, they've had a number of subcommittees doing work, a landscaping subcommittee, a preservation subcommittee, a technical subcommittee. The Executive Board will make a presentation. They will seek input from you, from the Park and Rec Board, from the public. With that input, the Executive Board will go back and work to consolidate all of their subcommittee reports to bring forward a final report and a final master plan. That will come back to you at some future date.
So will we get a packet for that?
We are meeting with the Forest Park Executive Board, I think Wednesday of this week, to understand what they would like you to have ahead of time and understand a little bit about the presentation. But my expectation is that we will get you something ahead of that meeting.
And do you expect us to sit up here, or will we be in the audience listening?
We will have both the Park and Rec Board and the Historic Preservation Commission up, and we'll ask Chairman Peretz and Chairman Ford of the Park and Rec Board to co-chair that meeting, and I think it'll be and also an opportunity for the Historic Preservation Commission and the Park and Rec Board to share some thoughts and comments. So,
how many representatives from that executive committee so we're going to be sitting with the Park and Rec Board? Is
correct.
That okay? And are there 7 of those gentlemen and gentlewomen?
I don't know how many will be attending.
Okay.
And then the presentation will be made as normal. That will be your only agenda item.
And then the executive committee, was that made up especially for this particular petition?
The executive committee
that you're
for
talking
Forest
about?
Park, the Forest Park Project Board, is a not-for-profit that was put together. So yes, that is an independent group. This is not a city-sponsored project coming forward. It is the work of this group that will be presented and then reviewed by the appropriate city boards and commissions, and ultimately the city council.
All right, I will make a motion to adjourn. No, I won't do that. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
No. Oh, wow.
Huh? You just want to sit around for a while? Anybody?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
There we go. Thank you, Commissioner Bergs. Seconded by Commissioner Moyer. All in favor say aye. Aye. Thanks for everybody's patience, and good night.